Hello everyone, welcome back to the Geekvolution Omnibus. I'm Captain Logan.
I'm Eric.
Eric, how are things?
Things are good.
Happy Easter and happy April Fool's Day.
We are recording this on Easter and April Fool's Day.
Simultaneously, which any other year would be impossible, but is happening today. And it was even a weirder day for us, because it snowed.
Yes.
Here where we are, it sleeted and snowed, and so we had a white April Fool's and Easter. Really weird. It's like the cosmos were messing with us.
What did I want to say hedgehog, but it's not hedgehog. What did the
oh right, the
February
groundhog
2? Yeah, the groundhog. What did the groundhog do this year?
I don't know. I never pay attention to that.
I don't either. But did he say it would be more? Did he say it would be more winter?
I don't know. They usually last longer here where we are in Kansas City. Or you won't have much of a winter at all, and then suddenly you'll get snow in, you know, April.
And just so everyone knows how crazy this is, it's not like we've been building this. Yesterday we were at 60 degrees.
Yeah.
Like, it was fine.
No, it's the Twilight Zone here. It just jumps all around, and you can't dress for success in a particular day. You know, you can leave your house and not need a coat and then need it later. You never know here.
And I discovered today...
Never a dull moment.
This is the first day, I think, that I've had to drive in snow. Because I went out for lunch at work today because everything's closed.
I was a little bit worried about that, but I didn't think it was sticking that much on the roads.
No, it wasn't that bad. I didn't have to go far to grab lunch, but I discovered if there's any snow, 2 miles an hour. That is the standard procedure. And I got back and I was like, so apparently you drive 2 miles an hour. And one of my coworkers was like, welcome to the Midwest. No one's ever driven in snow before.
Yeah, even though we've all had to drive in snow lots of times. Anyway,
I never have. I come from Florida.
So everybody, welcome back.
My biggest fear about getting a car.
To the Geekvolution Omnibus. We have quite a few things to chat with you about tonight. A little bit later in the program on how we felt about. We're going to be tackling Ready Player One, which I'm excited to talk about.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk a little bit about the new sci-fi series Krypton, which I've been anticipating for a good long time. It's finally here. We've got 2 episodes. I'm going to talk about both of them. And what else is going on today, Eric? We've got... You're going to talk about that? We've got Jessica Jones Season 2.
Jessica Jones.
If I can remember anything that happened in that, we're gonna talk about that a little bit. And on the Comic Vault this evening, we're gonna be talking about J. Michael Straczynski's Supreme Power. All that and more. Look forward to it. Here we go. Eric, I want to chat a little bit before we get started with stuff about Superhero Rewind. Superhero Rewind is back in a big way.
Are we gonna talk about all the other shows we announced?
No, I think the thing is we have to start actually making them first.
Okay.
The deal
they
is
start tomorrow.
Tomorrow
from recording.
They sure do, Eric. And we're gonna get on those immediately after we're finished with us. No, the Fresh Start video, people seem to really enjoy. It got a lot of play today. It was really cool. Thanks everybody for clicking on that. We had a lot of fun making that. Eric threw ideas at me. I came up with quite a few of the ideas in that. And Danny Nixon drew the logos for every single one of those. We got professional-looking logos for every single show. With maybe the exception, it was really funny what he did with this, with maybe the exception of Archie page by page, which was just an Archie picture he found, and he wrote page by page underneath it.
You know what I learned about the Fresh Start video?
Yeah.
Most people don't know that Marvel's new initiative is called Fresh Start.
Oh, have people been wondering what that means?
No, a lot of people are like, well, it should have been New 52. And I was like, oh, they don't know what I'm making fun of. They think we just randomly picked it.
And I am making fun of that specifically at the beginning when I'm talking about how we're going to give you everything we've always given you, but at the same time, it's going to be for everyone under the sun that's never been there before. We're going to be brand new directions. Yeah. So that's amusing. I did that because we had the Geekvolution Rebirth thing, which was not a joke, although someone made a comment about how that was a joke, and that was kind of funny. And then I had a joke when, do you remember this, when the channel got suspended and we thought it was deleted, when it came back, this was 5 years ago now, I mean 3 or 4 years ago now.
There's probably a lot of our viewers who don't even know that happened.
Yeah, that happened. There was about 48 hours where it looked like, 24 hours where it looked like we might not have a channel anymore. Yep. It was rough. We thought we were going to lose everything. And
that was Watchmen, wasn't it?
Watchmen.
Wasn't the Watchmen Rewind what did that?
No, that was well after the Watchmen.
Okay.
That I did back at the old apartment. This was here and there.
Okay.
This was after the Geekvolution Radio Hour.
Oh, okay.
Because I was working with those guys and I was getting phone calls from people from the Geekvolution from the radio station I was working with that were like, what happened to the channel? And they were trying to help me figure out what to do if we lost it, coming up with the contingency plans and stuff. But anyway, so yeah, it was a whole thing. It was we were hip deep in a Spawn year. It must have been 2014. That must be when it happened. But anyway, I did a joke when that happened, making fun of DCU.
Yeah,
and
I
also Marvel Now. It was Geekvolution Now and Geekvolution.
People already have trouble saying Geekvolution.
Yeah, I know. That was part of the reason I did that. That was really funny. So anyway, but so I don't know. That's the thing I like to do. I like to make fun of rebranding efforts, and for whatever reason, fake joke videos about programming we're not making is where those land. So anyway, I wanted to talk about several things going on with Superhero Rewind. I just put a new one of those out last week, Iron Man 3. Lots of people looked at that. Thanks a bunch for watching the video. I am putting out another brand new rewind, well, from when we're recording this right now, not tomorrow, but the next day. So you may already have it. You may already see it, and the patrons most certainly will. Right now, this is the first thing I wanted to mention about Rewind. Right now, I am putting up the episodes of Superhero Rewind 24 hours early for patrons. And so, if you want to watch the show early, become a patron at just $2 a month, and it's at the bottom tier there.
If you just gotta have it.
If you just gotta have it early, yeah. And I'll alert people whenever that's gone up in case you haven't pledged yet. But there's one you just gotta see. So the new one is gonna be a full blown, and again, it might be up by now. You might already know this, but the new one is a full blown hour and 20-something minute. I haven't gotten the exact length figured out yet, but it's well over an hour. Season overview of the first season of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and it's also available now in podcast form on Podbean and on iTunes, and you'll be able to find it with whatever your podcasting app is on your phone. It shows up in searches in those. So if you prefer to listen to it that way, there it is now. You can download it, you can put it in your phone. You don't have to worry about keeping a YouTube page up in order to watch it. I am having to pay for hosting in order to do that, so that's part of what we're using Patreon funds for. So once again, we sure appreciate your support, and I would love to ask anybody who is listening to the podcast version of it to please help us out on Patreon, because that helps me pay for that. And if we don't have a lot of listens on that, it's going to be difficult for me to want to keep it up. But I've gotten requests for that forever, and I also thought that might be good for exposure a little bit, because that has become such a podcast kind of thing now. We've taken all the stills out, it's just an audio thing now, and they're so lengthy at this point that I thought it's basically a podcast anyway, so it makes sense to put it there. Like I said, I've gotten requests for it forever. I would ask you to please consider, if you listen to it that way, to become a $2 patron. But but obviously, if you can't afford that, or you just don't want to do that, feel free to watch and listen to Rewind any way you want to. We're doing a new thing with the uploads for the old Rewind. So there are several videos, and this is part of the reason we took the pictures out. There are several videos that are not monetized right now or have been blocked that I'm going to have to repost. There are 25 of them. It's a big number, and some of them are some of the most watched rewinds, and it's awful that they either can't be watched or can't be monetized. And obviously, they're not being able to be watched is a bigger problem. But I'm reposting all of those, and I'm going to do them one a week until they all get up. So it'll take about half a year, but I didn't want to oversaturate it. I wanted people I didn't want them to get buried, so everybody would be able to see them when they get posted. So I posted Watchmen last week, Batman Begins is going to come up this week, and Danny Nixon is working on the thumbnails and the wallpaper for each of those, but I'm going to, or for a lot of them, and he's already made quite a few for me, but I'm going to open up and already have to other digital artists that would like to guest draw for us and make thumbnails, and we've got one already from David Crabtree. He's doing the one for Howard the Duck. I've got 3 other rewinds right now that I'm asking for those for, and once I've gotten those, I'll open up for more of them. I haven't gotten any more takers yet, but I've had a few people that have said they're working on something, so hopefully we get those soon, and hopefully they're great and I can use them. I ask that they be really close to up to snuff with Danny Nixon, with what Danny Nixon's doing, just for the sake of quality. It doesn't have to be exactly that style, of course, but I'm asking for digital art and not just hand-drawn. If you've got to do it hand-drawn, please ink it. It can't just be a pencil drawing. Please make sure that it's in color and that it's a really, really good scan, but I would much prefer digital if at all possible. So if you have any questions about that, let me know. Check out our Facebook for the post about that. I'll try to remember to put that in the description, but the other things I asked for, I think Brainiac Tax is in there, The Mask is in there, and there's a third one. I don't remember right away what it is.
Whoever does Brainiac Tax, it'll look bad in that movie.
So anyway, that's what's going on with that. We've got a Rewind review goal now on Patreon. For every $50 we raise, I am reviewing a movie that is highly requested or a major movie. So we passed the goal for Age of Ultron. That was the $400 goal. We're aiming right now for $450, trying to get to Guardians of the Galaxy, and we are at this posting, at the time of this posting, $18 away from that. So once that happens, the next Rewind after the one after Age of Ultron will be Guardians of the Galaxy. So I'll be working on Age of Ultron pretty soon. Once that is up, it's going to be a movie that's voted on by the Rewind Selection Board. And we don't know what that is yet. I've taken nominations from them. A lot of people asking for BVS. That's not going to happen yet. That's off the table for right now. But I'll put in. But I think Ant-Man's in there, and of course we've got a new Ant-Man movie coming out soon, so that's likely to win it. That could be the next thing. I don't want to do nothing but Marvel movies, all in a row. But anyway, but that might be happening for the next 3 anyway, depending on whether or not we hit that goal. So if you want to help us out to get us to that goal, so that I review Guardians sooner rather than later, patreon.com/Geekvolution, $2 a month gets you most of the perks for Patreon. And
push die, Darkman die.
What was that?
I said push die, Darkman die.
That has been on a poll and no one's voted for it, but
because that is technically Darkman 3, but they were shot, they were made in reverse order, and there is continuity between them, so you actually should review Die Darkman Die before the Return of Durant.
Yep. Which is probably what I'll do, yeah. What I might do is, because sometimes I take requests and then put up a poll for the Rewind Selection Board, which is at the $5 tier, and sometimes I just put up movies that I want to do and then let them pick out of 5, and I think, if I haven't done this already, I'm going to. At some point, I want to do a poll that's all, like, kind of not great, sort of crappy sequels to movies that I've reviewed already, and I put Swamp Thing in there, and I put RoboCop in there, and I would put and Darkman and The Crow, and I need to get some of those knocked out. I've got a bunch of those sitting around.
The Crow City Angel will be interesting, because I don't think it's a bad movie. I don't actually think that Salvation is either. It's not so wicked prayer that you can tell legit.
I haven't seen any of these. When I say crappy movies, I just mean movies that people don't talk about.
The lower rent sequels. I mean, Irvin Kershner made RoboCop 2.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I either didn't know that or always forget that. So anyway, so that's what's going on with the review goal there. Of course, I just kind of want to put all the plugging stuff up front today. And then we still do the $20 donation, of course, for reviews in the Omnibus. We're going to have You Made Me Watch a little bit later, and we're reviewing 3 things there. Supreme Power today was given to us by one of the patrons, and we're gonna review that on the Vault. But that was a Patreon request, and we have a few more that have already built up that we're going to do next time. If you'd like to get in on that, $20 tier on Patreon, or send me an email to the email address in the description, and you can send me a one-time donation for whatever it is you'd like Eric and I to review. We'll do pretty much anything that's not X-rated or impossible to get. It's
also not just Cap or just the both of us. You can specifically request me, or specifically request Cap, or specifically request, I guess, both of us.
Yeah, and if you really
no one specified anything yet, but if you specifically are like, I want Eric to look at this, or I want Cap to look at this.
There have been some where it's been really clear that they really wanted to make sure that I was in on it, even if you were too. But yes, you can, and thanks for saying that, because I don't want to just assume that you'll do that. But yeah, so you can send us that donation for Eric to review something by himself if you want to. If you want to make sure that Eric is in on it with me, make sure to let us know, because our time is limited, and we'll have to make sure that we front load that if the two of us are supposed to watch something.
Yeah, because I unfortunately have a 40-hour-a-week job, so what I can actually read and watch is sometimes limited.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks for mentioning that, Eric. And then Anything else about the about Patreon and things like that that I need to mention?
Do we mention After Dark? I feel like we always mention After Dark.
Well, yeah, we can go ahead and do that. Of course, that's part of the $2 tier, and Eric and I twice a month. And we're going to start adding video games. We're going to be doing that pretty soon. We still have to finish Telltale Batman.
Yep.
And we're going to try to knock some of that out.
We would have done that this time, but Jessica Jones.
That was
ate up most of our
ate up a lot of time. Luckily, we don't have any TV like that we have to hurry up and get knocked out, so we can work on that. And then we're going to be doing video game playthroughs once a month. Is the plan right now? We'll see how well that goes and how much time we have.
If people actually like them,
and if people really care about them. But we'll try one or two and see how it goes. And After Dark's not going anywhere, so you'll still have that extra content, that Patreon exclusive show that is Eric and I talking for an hour about all kinds of random things that we feel like talking about. Sometimes things that we would never discuss on the channel, and sometimes things that we just
completely uncensored,
don't have time to talk on the channel about, and it's uncensored, and anything can happen, and sometimes we play goofy games, and we do all kinds of fun stuff there. So anyway, check all that stuff out, and the last big thing I need to talk about real quick is Who Reviews the Reviewers, which is coming up soon. We have 1 week before the deadline. It is next Tuesday from when this is being, I think it's next Tuesday, or maybe it's even, I'll put the exact date in the description. I forgot to write that down. I think it's like the 9th. It's next Tuesday. So make sure that you go check out the guidelines for that. It's pinned on our Facebook. We also have a video outlining exactly what you need to do for that, and the time limit, which is 5 minutes, and everything else you need to know about how to enter the contest. The idea is this time, instead of a whole cast of reviewers that keep reviewing things for an entire season, you do one. And if you get top banana, then you don't have to make another review until the end when we do one big last challenge.
More like tournament brackets now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, it's like non-elimination tournaments, because if you don't get top banana in one, you can keep going over and over again. Yeah. So I say it's not a cast that keeps going the whole time. It is if you lose a lot and you want to keep playing. So you can keep playing, certainly. But it's not the sort of thing where we pick everybody up front and then you're obligated to keep making videos. Nobody's obligated to continue. We hope that everybody that wins comes back. That's the big thing with that. But anyway, so we're excited about that. We're gonna be reviewing the top 3 videos that we get for the contest. And by the way, we're going to be doing that next Omnibus, which is why that deadline is next week, because we need a week to review them, to look at them and pick our 3. So if you get your video if you get Top Banana, the prize for that is going to be in Omnibus, and you can make another review, and we'll put it in the Omnibus. And then after that, there'll be a cash prize for whoever wins the final challenge. Aaron Dicer was supposed to be our guest host and our kind of our regular guest host. He was going to come in for probably at least 2 or 3 of these, and he would be on the first one. Last week he had a major health scare. He had not a heart attack, cardiac arrest, thank you. And that was last Wednesday, and he was put into a medically induced coma, and he didn't wake up from it until Saturday. And it looks like he may make a full recovery, but it's just really slow going right now. He basically, the way his co-host on his radio show puts it, came back from the dead. Is basically what happened. And so I have no idea if he's going to be up for doing the co-hosting with us at all this season. Certainly not the first one. That's only 2 weeks from now. There's no way he's going to be up for that. I would imagine. So we'll find somebody else for that first week, and I don't know who yet, but we've got plenty of folks I'm sure that would be interested in coming in and helping us out with it. So we'll find another guest judge. But anyway, so that is all the news that's fit to print. Is there anything else you can think of?
I don't think so.
That we need to announce or discuss about things going on with the channel right now? Make sure to check out, if you are available on a Wednesday afternoon, the open forum, which I do for an hour at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Those have been going really well. We get big crowds there, and we keep beating our record of number of questions that are asked. We cannot get to them all. It's insane. It might seem kind of weird considering all the things that we do twice a month, that I'm doing that weekly, but there are so many questions. There's so many questions. There's just so many questions. So I end up feeling the need to keep coming back and doing those, and we have a really good time. It's a lot of fun. So 3 o'clock Central Time on a Wednesday afternoon. Come check it out and tell your friends.
Is it same bat time, same bat channel?
It is. Well, it's in fact same cap time, Eric.
Oh.
Same cap channel. Let me, for whatever reason, every time we get to fan art, I drop out the folder, and oh, here it is. Okay, so our fan art today comes from Manuel Alanis, and he did some really nice Spider-Man sketches.
That's great.
Yeah, he sent me 3 of these. That's the first one, with Spider-Man in that wonderfully acrobatic pose, and then he's got a Death of Gwen Stacy picture that I think is also excellent, and then here is his Hobgoblin.
All 3 of those are really good.
They're really good. Yeah, so Manuel, thanks a bunch for sending us those. We sure appreciate it. And right now, Eric and I are going to jump straight into Geeks Not Nerds. We're not going to do trivia this week. We've got quite a bit of stuff to get to, and I had a lot of long-winded things to talk about with especially Rewind there. So we'll go ahead right now and get into Geeks Not Nerds. Here we go. Welcome back to Geeks Not Nerds. Once again, I am Captain Logan.
And I am Eric.
Eric, today's topic came from you, sir. This is a thing that you've been wanting to talk about for a real long time. I'm going to let you.
What it is anymore.
I'm going to let you kind of run point on
That's
this.
Good because I don't
today, remember what it is Eric. I'll just give you a second. We'll see if Eric.
We came up with this last night. I don't even.
So last night, you came to me and you were like, "Now I know, Cap. You said."
Oh, that's right.
No,
yes, I know exactly what it is. I know exactly what it is. Yep.
What are we talking about today, Eric?
We're talking about copyright laws.
We sure are.
We are talking about copyright laws, which is really funny because earlier, like before we started doing this
intellectual
show,
property.
I was thinking about. I was like. It's like, oh yeah, we were talking about doing that for something. Maybe it was After Dark. Maybe that'll be an After Dark topic. I totally forgot that we were in fact doing this.
So we wanted to talk about like copyright laws, intellectual property laws, and not that we're experts and know everything about that stuff. That makes it sound like we're gonna have a legal conversation.
No.
What we really want to talk about, really the question for today is when and how long, like should and when. Should things go in the public domain? Is kind of the question today.
I think because I was thinking about this earlier.
Yeah.
This is kind of building on stuff that we said not on camera, so this is going to be all
It's going to be
place.
weird. It's one of those things where we had a really nice discussion last night, and I was like, why don't we just turn on the camera right now? That's what we should have done. I'm sure it won't be... Sorry, folks, but whatever you hear us say right now won't be nearly as interesting as what happened yesterday.
So I guess the first thing you have to talk about when you talk about intellectual property is Disney and how they've ruined it.
I think that's fair, yeah.
No debate, no question, they have ruined it. Every time... So originally it was 50 years after, I believe, the creator's death. Their intellectual property went into public domain. That's why anyone can write Dracula or Sherlock Holmes or things of that ilk. Anyone can use Frankenstein. It's because we've gone past that.
Whoever the creator was, whoever owned the rights.
Yeah,
yeah.
Lovecraft's like that too, and that's interesting because most of his compatriots do not have that. Maybe he just has worse legal representation. But like, you can use Cthulhu, but you can't use Conan.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Part of that might be because he was such a...
Which is one of the things that makes it feel like he was earlier than he was sometimes.
Yeah. But so, originally I believe it was 50 years. Every time we come up to the deadline, Disney shows up with their pocketbook and pays off everyone and says, hey, what if it was a little bit longer?
Yeah.
Because they don't want to lose Mickey Mouse, they don't want to lose any of their key franchises or IPs, their characters. I think it's 70 now. And we're coming up on a deadline, and so I'm sure Disney will push that back even further. Basically, Disney should no longer own a lot of the things they own, and they don't want that. And then you get into things with comic books.
They're so popular, or excuse me, they're so powerful that they're able to have too much influence on the rules.
Yeah. And then you get into things like comic books. I think it's absurd at this point that Batman's not in the public domain.
Yeah.
Superman. Pretty much anyone from the Golden Age. They should all be in public domain at this point. I think it's I think the copyright laws, A, need to be completely readdressed, because they were made without... The idea of a corporately owned creation did not exist when we made copyright laws.
Right.
The idea that DC Comics would create Batman, Superman, and Marvel Comics would create...
and that they would have a stable of creators that would make things that they don't own, that are owned by that entity, almost as if it created those things, but it didn't. There was a creator or co-creators, but they don't get to keep those things, and they don't have any say on whether or not it ever goes into the public domain.
I also think a major problem is families. People who either maintain control of an IP, or, I mean, you also have the thing with, like, the Kirby family and the Siegel and Schuster families, like, saying, like, well, our family created that, we should at the very least get a cut, but we should have control over this character, because our parents or grandparents made this thing.
Yeah.
I think
and we pass property down.
Yeah, I kind of think
that's what we do in our
that's
society.
Absurd.
Okay, so let's
there's two discussions.
Well, hold on. I don't want to go there yet.
Okay.
Let's draw back a little bit before we get there. That seems like a second or third tier of this conversation.
Sure. Well, I'm just spinning my wheels because it was just me.
Before we get to all that,
okay.
Let's first discuss why we like the idea of public domain in the first place. Why does this matter to us?
Well, it's because once something permeates culture to a point, it should be usable. It's the who's the artist in the '60s, the one who did like the soup can.
Yeah.
I can't think of what his name is.
I always have a hard time thinking.
But his whole Andy Warhol.
Thank you.
Andy Warhol's.
Yeah, there you go.
Andy Warhol's whole thing is these are things that are part of our...
I talked about him a lot. I can never think of his name for some reason. Sorry, go ahead.
These are things that are part of our lives.
Yeah.
Everyday lives. Everyone should be able to use these.
Yeah, a Coke can is in your purview as much as trees and tables and tires.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason that you shouldn't be able to make it part of a painting, or put it in a novel, or put it in a film.
Yeah. I also think that it's so like, first of all, it's just constantly
regardless
there.
of whether or not you think that Andy Warhol's paintings of just a soup can count as art. You know what I mean? Like, that is a debate people have.
No.
The whole pop art.
Andy Warhol falls into that thing where, like, it's not really what the painting is, it's about the meaning behind the painting. I tend to lean on Andy Warhol's side in that whole debate.
Well, and I think some of that, too, is just trying to perpetuate his feelings about that.
Mm-hmm.
His philosophy. He says, I should be able to do this, and so I do.
Yeah.
It's kind of that Andy Kaufman thing, where it's like, I should be able to do this.
Yeah. So it becomes a thing where it's so part of our conscious and our subconscious and just our very existence. We should have access to this. It's not fair creatively that something like Batman is not accessible to everyone, and it's... I think in some ways it stops things from being built on.
That's the main thing that I want to bring up, yeah.
I'll talk about Sherlock Holmes and Dracula. Like, Sherlock Holmes and Dracula, I think being in the public domain has done an amazing thing where, like, if you want to write a Sherlock Holmes story, you can go do that, and you can get that out of your system, and then maybe what you've learned writing that, you can then go write something inspired by Sherlock Holmes. That is not Sherlock Holmes, you can do your own thing.
It would be nice if eventually we could do this with Star Trek.
Yeah. And
Star Wars, and just some of these big giant properties that a lot of people are huge fans of, and they understand the ins and outs of that world. I've heard a lot of science fiction writers say that if you want to get really good at writing science fiction, start with a Star Trek story, because you know that world already. You get the world buildings done for you, and then you can work on characterization and structure and that kind of stuff, and then, like, you can't publish it, but write one. And then after that, that's a nice kind of training wheels exercise, and then you can start creating your own worlds after that. What if we could do that, and it's actually okay to profit from it when, like you said, that creator hasn't been around for a long time, and it's just part of the zeitgeist.
Well, and on the other side, you have the like, I don't want to say the word masters, but like the seasoned people who do come in and do, like, I'm going to do something with Dracula, I'm going to do something with Sherlock Holmes, I'm going to do something with Lovecraft, or if you're Neil Gaiman, like, I'm going to do something with Sherlock Holmes and Lovecraft, and like all of this stuff, and like,
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yeah, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Like people who really have a take or have something new and different to say, you will never get that specifically with like the DC characters, because they're so iconic. You get a lot of pastiches. Joe Casey's Sex is very much a book about Batman.
Sure.
But it can't be about Batman. And boy, wouldn't it be more interesting if it was about Batman?
Yeah.
But he's not allowed. And I think that's absurd. I think it's ridiculous. I'm not saying that the second someone creates something, it should be there. Batman has been there so long, comics specifically are weird because the question of who created what becomes a big thing. Who created Venom? Like, that's a huge question because of all of these different elements from different people.
It seems like we did maybe a whole show on even that phenomenon at one point. The thing is, intellectual property laws are there to protect the people who actually made the thing from not being ripped off and not being able to profit on their own things or having it stolen from them. I believe in property rights. I understand why we have that in this country, and I'm not against corporations who work above board and work within the rules. So the fact that a corporation owns a thing that they didn't, that like the person who originally created it isn't necessarily with them, but they own it, those rights should be still protected, but only for so long, I think. Like, I do completely agree with you on that, just because like, it's a real sticky situation where it would be nice if, all things being equal, if we didn't have to worry about people being ripped off and their stuff being stolen from them and not being able to profit from it, if everything someone creates, everyone has access to without hurting anyone else, because that is how art builds on itself. That, like, everything, we talk about this all the time, that obviously everything is influenced by something else, and you need to be able to take something that existed already and allow that to evolve and morph into the other things it's naturally going to evolve and morph into. What gets really complicated is with the somewhat strict copyright laws that we have in this country, is telling the difference between ripping somebody off and just building on it, and it's the lines are so blurred that it's really easy to get sued for doing the thing that is just natural in how art is made.
Well, and it's also copyright laws are different in different countries.
Yeah.
So it gets weird.
Japan, it's a lot stricter.
Yeah,
I've heard.
In China, it's a lot more. It's a lot looser.
Yeah, I've heard that in Japan. I don't know if this is true, because I've not been there and I haven't looked into it. But apparently, if you, I don't remember who I heard this from. Apparently, you can't like name things that are licensed in anything.
That I'm not sure if that they must have parody laws because I've seen it referenced in like other things jokingly.
Yeah.
But they also have a big thing that we don't have. Japan has a whole genre of manga called doujinshi, which are unlicensed things that people sell. There is a whole industry of fan comics, and a lot of people start in those, and a lot of people get picked up. There's certain people who like did like a bunch of Dragon Ball fan comics, and now we're officially working on certain Dragon Ball properties and things like that. So I'm not sure how strict. I think it might be company by company. I don't know if it's...
heard that, but I wasn't sure I bought it. Like, there's parody laws, but then okay, so in this country, you can't copyright titles, and I don't know if you can there, but you can't do that here, and you can name anything, but you can't you can't use. Obviously, as we're talking about, you can't use Batman in something, but you can talk about someone reading a Batman comic, and then you get into slander and libel issues, where you can bring up, say Burger King, but if you start, making Burger King like the corporate villain of your story, that could get murky.
There's a Judge Dredd comic that was never republished for like 4 decades, where Judge Dredd goes out in the post-apocalypse, and there is what is referred to as the Burger Wars, and there is a Ronald McDonald and a Burger King, and they're like Mad Max like clans.
I didn't know that.
And they war with each other, and it wasn't republished until I think a couple of years ago. It was.
And there were parodies of those characters. It was.
I believe it was just straight up those characters.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think you should be able to do that. I absolutely think you should be able to do that. I think it's ridiculous that you can't. But I think there's also, when it comes to creativity and creation, I have a real big question of like, yeah, but who made you be the one that gets to decide? I have this a lot with families, where it's like, so your great-grandfather made something, what insight do you have into this thing that I do not?
Yeah, and that's where I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. That doesn't matter.
Okay.
That's not how property works. So if the law is property is decided, like who owns it is decided by the person who made it, then it doesn't matter if those people are creative or if they have any ideas for it. It doesn't matter what you want, Eric. That's not how ownership works. And so you have to think about a licensed property as being more tangible than it is because of how the law works. And I don't see, like, you can disagree with the law in this particular instance, but I have a difficult time with that because I don't know what the difference is between your dad like opened his own steakhouse and passed it down to you, and your dad created Batman and passed it down. I don't know what the difference is.
Okay, well, I mean...
There is no difference.
I mean, there is a difference in that I have never heard of anyone having a character passed down to that. Well, that's not true. There are cases of characters being passed down, but for the most part, it's just they died, and then someone takes over, and a lot of times they don't seem to...
But that's... No, but that's how passing down works. It's inheritance.
Yeah, but a lot of times with like restaurants, things like that, they're literally like, I'm giving the store to you kind of a thing.
Right. The same thing happens with intellectual property. It's just that you don't hear about it because those people aren't the ones who are actually writing it. You see what I'm saying? Like, they'll decide, no, it's the exact same thing. A lot of restaurants will get passed down and those people will own it but hire someone else to run it. The exact same thing is going on with the family thing. It's with intellectual property. It's more complicated when that property is also owned by a big corporation and the family has to be involved because it's almost like co-owners. You know what I mean? It's almost like having stock in a company or something. I
don't think they should be able to dictate the direction of something. Like I almost feel like I don't think you should have to pay them to make something, but they should get profits from it. Like, if that makes sense. I
think it would be nice to have more of a sense more often of what the person that passed it down really wanted for it. You know what I mean? But I don't know that I fully agree with that. Like, because I just for you and I as consumers look at that differently because we want everything to be about good storytelling and quality of storytelling. But we're talking about a different issue. You see what I'm saying?
Well, but then nothing would enter the public domain. It would just pass down families the way a restaurant does. Restaurants never enter the public domain. It has to be a different thing.
Well, but see, I don't understand how exactly, and this is where we get into a thing that I just don't know enough about. This is part of why I didn't want to talk about this in the first place. Like, this was your idea. I think initially when I was like, I don't know if I want to talk about that, I think it was because I don't know if I know enough to talk about this. So I clearly don't. So and I'm sure we'll get some comments from people.
Yeah, not even speaking legally. We're just talking like, I'm sure like aerial view kind of a thing.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be people that understand this topic better than we do that will set us straight on some things. I had a lot of that back when I was talking about Axonar, because I just don't know enough about intellectual property rules and and code and stuff. But what were we talking about?
I was talking about how a restaurant never enters the public domain, but a character does.
The Simon & Schuster thing, I don't really know why the family is still able to. I think it's just because DC has maybe figured out how to keep that going past when it was supposed to go, and so then there's still a legal issue of. I'm assuming, like, is that what it is, or is it something? Sure. I don't know. I don't know why that's even an issue.
I don't know. Well, but it's the same thing with the Kirby family.
But you do make a good point. I'm contradicting myself. If we are making an argument for public domain, we're saying that there should be some kind of a statute of limitations where even the family wouldn't have ownership over it anymore. And so in that sense, it is different than just passing down an object that you own.
Mm-hmm.
I can see both sides of that. Like,
mm-hmm. Well, and that gets sticky when it comes to corporations. Corporations never die.
See, what I think there's a way to sort of do both things. I like the idea of allowing the basic, this is what Batman is, and then maybe the characters associated with it, this is what they are, let that go into the public domain, but there's a continuity that continues to go on from DC that you can't mess with. You know what I mean? Like, I think you can have both things,
Everyone
potentially.
has to reboot.
At the same time, yeah.
But that's not how anything else works. Like you can reboot Sherlock Holmes, or you can do a sequel to a Sherlock Holmes story, like...
Right, but it wouldn't... right, you could do that too, but it wouldn't be considered canon. What I'm saying is, just simply whatever you do is not official.
Sure.
We just need to have a... I think we could solve a lot of problems if we just had a separation of this is official, this is not official.
Well, and I also think that you're in this place now, where we've done this for so long, if this ever changed over...
You got me not even sure what I think about this anymore, as far as the family ownership thing goes. Because I do like the idea of public domain. I think because who are we protecting after a fashion?
Yeah, no, I agree. Because I don't think the family should have control. I just don't. Because
Man, I can see both sides.
Because
of that.
it's such an ethereal thing. It's and oftentimes it seems like
but
they
should
don't.
They for that first 50 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe we could at least agree on that.
No,
compromise on that.
No, absolutely.
Okay, but then why? Why them and why not someone else?
Well, I mean, in a perfect world, like, I guess not, because all I can think of is everything that families have ruined.
Yeah, but again, we can't make it about quality.
I know.
That's not what this is about.
But yeah, I mean, I guess them, because it is property ownership, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this is a fairness and a moral question, right?
Honestly,
like, that doesn't have anything to do with whether or not good stories are going to come from those people.
I think some of this should be more open, and you as a creator should there should be a legal thing where, like, you decide before you die.
Yeah.
I want my kids to own this,
well,
or I want this to go in the public domain.
Yeah, and you do kind of have to do that with other things people own.
Mm-hmm. And I think more people should. And
I don't just mean with things people create. I mean like anything you have, if it's not in the will, it gets sold off.
Mm-hmm. Dave Sim, creator of Cerberus, which. Really, unfortunately, that guy kind of seemed to...
Or goes to your spouse or whatever, but, like, yeah. Sorry,
that guy seems to go off the rails at some point, kind of become a crazy person. But and maybe always was. But, like, I like his ideas about copyright laws, and he has said many times, when he dies, everything he's made will go into the public domain. Unfortunately, I'm not sure anyone want to touch that stuff now, after what he's done. But I wish that was more... Like, and it's the way he makes it sound.
I'd like to know what McFarlane wants to do with Spawn. And like after he passes away, what does he want to happen to that character?
But the way Dave Sims, the way it sounds when Dave Sims talks about it, makes it seem like he had to, like, jump through hoops to do that, to set it up so that his things go in the public domain when he dies. I think it should be I think legally it should be.
Well, if you own something, you should be able to do whatever you want to.
I agree. But I think that should be more of a. We shouldn't just assume.
Yeah. I think so too.
Because creations come from creators, and creators should be able to control what happens to that. If somebody says, like, when I die, you know, maybe like property stuff, like you could be like, yeah, this doesn't go to my family. This goes to Disney gets this when they die. Or I've been in communication with this one person, and they really seem to get what I'm about, and so it's going to go to a fan, or you know or it's going to go in public domain. You know?
Yeah.
I think the creator should have much more control than just what we have, which is a default.
So my final thoughts. I'm conflicted because we're out of time. I'm conflicted about. Now, very conflicted about the. You make a very persuasive argument. In that what I'm saying doesn't match what we started with. But so I'm very conflicted about the family ownership question and all of that. But my main thing still is. intellectual property laws are important. We do need to protect people in the short term.
Yeah,
and
in your lifespan.
And those rules, yeah, and I also understand to some degree protecting companies that own things that are that are playing by the rules and doing the right thing. What I don't, of course, want, which happens, is a lot, is having intellectual property rules that that are working more for companies than they are for the people who created them, and that makes it easy for companies to screw people and to come up with loopholes so that they can make money simply for having a thing and not even really doing anything with it. That's the big huge problem with it for me. So it needs to be less strict than it is in one sense, and almost more strict in another sense.
Well, and I think on some level, quality control should play into some of this. Just in, so like you have the Fox thing with Fantastic Four, right? Where like it's like you just have to make something to keep these rights. That should never be an option. You shouldn't be able to make the Roger Corman Fantastic Four just to keep the... That shouldn't be possible.
Well, that's not even an issue of quality control, because this is very simple. If the rule was just, you have to release it, then they would make something better, because then it would bomb at the box office.
And it might hurt the brand.
Look, you have to have regulations with food to make sure that people don't get sick, but it's too arbitrary and it's too arbitrary when it comes to the quality of something that you're consuming for entertainment to decide what counts as good and what counts as bad. You can't make that. You can't legalize it. You gotta make that part of the law.
That's true. Well, and the Roger Corman Fantastic Four might be the best Fantastic Four film.
It's weird. It's not. It's technically the 04 or the 0405 is the best of those. It has no story, but you know. But yeah, I'm just saying that it is too subjective, right?
Yeah, no, it is.
It's not the same thing as like what you can't have meat that's going to produce salmonella. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm very in the camp of things should go into the public domain, and yeah, I don't know. I don't even think it's a bad idea that things go into the public domain once a person passes or very quickly after a person passes. I don't even know if it needs to be 50 years. That's all for like families and companies. Like I don't know. Like I'm very much about the creator, and I think you should decide. If you're a novelist and you're a published novelist, I think it should just be standard routine procedure in the same way you update a will, that you decide what you want to happen to your properties.
Why isn't that part of a will?
Yeah,
sure. So we agree on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Aaron, do you have any rants today?
I do. I actually have
what would you like to complain about? Well, why don't you pick one?
I am going to pick one.
Okay, sure.
Because it's going to tie into a thing that we're going to talk about later.
Oh, exciting.
And I'd completely forgotten about
Ready Player One.
I went to write... No.
Okay.
I went to write down how much easier would Ready Player One be if things went in the public domain.
Right, yeah, sure. It is really weird that there's nothing Disney in that movie. You know, that feels like, and I get it. They just didn't want to play ball, but just in the world of that movie, it feels like Disney never happened.
Yeah,
and it's just really strange because they have stuff from so many other, companies and licenses.
No, and it's funny because I'd forgotten about this, and I was going to do a different rant, and I went into I had one thing written down for rants in my phone from like 2 weeks ago, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess I'll do that because it ties into a thing we're talking about later. So my rant is, detective is not a genre. Noir is a genre, mystery is a genre, detective is not a genre. You cannot just have a protagonist be a detective and say this is a detective thing.
Okay, now let me stop you for a second. You used to rant and complain that noir is not a genre, that it's a style.
Noir is also not a genre.
You just said it is.
You're right. I guess what I mean by noir...
You just said noir is a genre!
You're right. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, noir, sorry, go ahead.
Noir isn't a genre. It is a look. It is a feel. I guess it's a genre in that, like, there are certain traits associated with it.
Yeah.
But it is more a look that is a... But detective is not a genre, and, like, if you do something noir, like I've always had this joke that, like, if you're doing something noir, especially like neo-noir, like you're doing it now. Not obviously the actual foundational noir films. Most of those end up not being detective movies. But if you do anything now, I've always had this joke where I'm like, it doesn't matter what your protagonist's job is, he is a detective. In Big O, he is a negotiator. He spends most of his time going around detecting things.
So detective isn't a genre. What genre does it fall into?
Well, it depends. It can be a mystery, it can be hard-boiled, it can be...
But those are considered subgenres of the detective genre.
Sure, but
so how's it not a genre?
Because I think a lot of people just have a detective protagonist and say it's a detective thing, but it's not a detective thing. And like, we'll talk about this with Jessica Jones a little bit, but like, this is a thing with a lot of things.
So basically, what you're saying is it's not a genre unless you're actually working in the genre. Like, it is a genre,
I guess.
Right?
I guess. I mean,
like,
I guess
like you. I think what you're really complaining about is things that want to have that style but don't actually have a detective doing any detectiving.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're complaining about.
Yeah.
Like, it is a genre. Like what else is Sherlock Holmes if it's not a detective piece? I don't understand how that's not a genre.
Wait. So I remember what I wrote down. It's not genre. I've been using the wrong word this entire time.
Okay.
Tone.
Yeah.
Detective is not a tone.
Okay, you just said the opposite of what you're trying to say.
I understand that. I was trying to... I should have checked my phone to actually see what I wrote.
Which
detective is not a tone.
How
everything.
you started with noir is a genre.
Yes, I've been using the wrong word. I wrote down tone. Yes.
Yeah.
Detective is not a tone.
Detective is not a style. It is a genre.
Yeah, and I feel like we're using it like a style. Yeah, like a tone. It's a detective show.
Yeah, okay, there we go. We're all caught up now.
Yep, sorry, I've been using the wrong word the whole time. That's what I mean.
That's all right.
Cut this. Strike it.
No,
reverse it.
No, I've done that.
Detective's not a tone. Detective is not a style.
Yeah.
And I feel like we do a lot of things where we do that.
Yeah,
where we act like, well, it's like a detective thing, but it's not like a detective thing at all.
Yeah, sure.
We just casually kind of know what that looks like.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of it. As someone that enjoys those things, I'm really done with going into things.
No, the tone is intrigue.
Yeah.
Because you can have that without someone that's actually actively looking for clues and trying to solve a mystery. Like, those are not mutually exclusive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can have
or thriller.
Yeah, that too, but I mean, like, but you can have a thing that is mysterious and where there are people, you know, doing bad things in the background and where we don't know exactly what's going on without the main character trying to solve a case. Like, detective is...
And that's what a lot of classic noir films are.
Right.
It's crime.
It's not only a genre... Right, it's crime. It's not only a genre, but it's also a profession.
Mm-hmm.
And you need someone that is, if not professionally detecting, actively doing that as if they were.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I've seen a lot of things like I get really excited. I'm like, oh, it's a detective thing, and then I watch it and I'm like, but it's not really a detective thing.
Yeah.
The main character is a detective. I have this problem. There's a Kamen Rider show that I like quite a bit called Kamen Rider Double. The main character is a detective. His Bible is Raymond Chandler, and sometimes stylistically it's kind of detective-y and like. But I don't feel like he's working cases any more than anyone else. They just pay lip service. So it's like, well, it's a detective thing. I'm like, but it's not really.
Yeah.
You're just saying he's a detective. He's doing the same things every other Kamen Rider does. He's just helping people.
Why do we do that? Is it because people think that those are difficult to write, where they don't want to make the protagonist look stupid or make things look too convoluted in going and trying to discover things, or is it that they are afraid of just like redoing the formula over and over again?
No, I think the problem is it's permeated pop culture too much. I don't think anyone actually knows. Not anyone. I don't think people know what a detective thing is.
Yeah.
So they just they think they do. Like they're like,
Mystery Orient Express was novel. It's been so long since we've had a thing like that.
Yeah. And that's a fair play mystery. That's not exactly a detective thing, but yeah. Well, we don't make those things anymore. But like, I feel like
but he's still a detective.
Yes. But I think people think they know what that's like, or it's the trench coat and hat thing.
Yeah.
You read most detective novels and they do not wear a trench coat and hat. I don't know where that stereotype comes from. It's not actually a thing. Most of them wear suits.
Yeah.
But children's shows do this. Everything does this where it has the imaginary episode, like a dream episode where everything's shadowy and there's a dude in a trench coat smoking a cigarette.
But that's because of noir. I mean, that comes from the 30s.
I think they think it's a tone. I think people think they can make a detective thing without knowing what detective things are like. They're just like, well, I know what that feels like. I know what a detective thing is like. but they don't. It's not actually a detective thing.
You have a lot of shadow, you have a lot of voiceover, you have...
And that's not even all, that's not even all inherent in detective.
Sure.
Murder on the Orient Express is a murder mystery. It's not about shadow. Like, that's not inherently, that's a hard-boiled thing. But even then, the Rockford Files aren't shot like that. Rockford Files are real bright and sunny. It's still a pretty hard-boiled detective thing. Also,
Matlock's not shot like that.
I also don't think that most people are aware that most detective stories take place in L.A., or at least in California. Everyone assumes it's New York. I don't know why, but, like, most detective stuff happens like, literarily, in novels. Most detective stuff happens over on the West Coast.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is, I can think of an example where you have the opposite of this. Angel is a detective show. Nobody talks about it like that.
That's true. Well, I think it's because Angel metamorphosizes, and, like, the first season is very much that.
Yeah.
But by the time you get to the end, it's not. Like, I don't think season 5 is a detective show. I think we get away from that.
No, but that's only because... Yeah, but very intentionally. I mean, like... it's a lawyer show. I mean, like...
But I'm not sure, like, season 4 is, either. Like, I feel like it starts there, and then I think every season of Angel is kind of a different genre.
No, that's true. That's fair. Yeah.
But the first season of Angel is a detective thing. Yeah, I'm kind of done getting excited for things.
You made me think of that because you said L.A.
Yeah,
They might have thought of detective because they said in L.A.
Well, and of course most detective things are set in L.A. because so much of them involves Hollywood and all the seediness of film.
Right.
Like, of course it takes... But for some reason, we always put it in New York. I think intellectually, like, in people's minds, they think it's a New York thing. It's a streets... It's merging crime films with detective things, and no one... Yeah. And not actually knowing the source material, and just thinking, like, well, yeah, I know what that feels like. So yeah, that's my rant, is detective is not a tone. It is a genre. It's not a tone. But yes.
I've got a real simple one. This is not juicy or anything, and I'm mostly putting this out there in case anybody knows of a good solution to this problem. So I keep running into this issue where I'll find out about a concert or a local performance way too late to get tickets, where, like, the tickets have sold out, or I found out about it after the thing actually happened. I can't come up with a good way to keep up with when things are happening with concerts or with plays or any kind of public performance that I care about without having to wade through a million things I don't care about.
It seems like there should be a website where you should be able to put in artists and acts that you're interested in, and it will just ping you when they're coming to your area.
Maybe there is something like that, but I don't know of it. And obviously, we have this with everything else, like, you know, social networks and Twitter, and where you'll get you put in a keyword and you get a ping every time there's news about it. I want that every time there is something locally happening that has to do with my interests, because if I want to, for instance, know when like a rock band I like is playing or something, I have to just look up the individual rock band and see if they're actually showing up.
Meanwhile, it's any time near when you're deciding to look it up.
Yeah. Meanwhile, someone that I didn't think about that I would totally like to go see, I'll never find out about. Mm-hmm. And the reason I thought of this is because there's a symphony that is playing the music from Back to the Future, and I wanted to go to that, but there were like 8 tickets left, and I couldn't get tickets next to each other, and they were like $50 tickets, and if I could get seats next to each other, I might have paid that, but I bet early on there were some cheaper tickets, and I just didn't know about it. So, like, I want to, and there's too many different, you know, genres and styles of music, and different kinds of things you want to go to.
Knowing people into things?
I want to know, like, anytime something is related to superheroes, or Batman, or you know, Star Trek, or certain kinds of movies, I would like to somehow know about them.
Well, and knowing people knowing different people that are into things, specifically music and, like, plays and things like that.
And I live in a big city where a lot of this kind of stuff happens.
It seems like it's like comics. You only know if you're just always plugged in.
That's right.
You know all the shows that are coming. You know all the plays that are coming. Those are the people that know those things. There doesn't seem to be a casual way.
I don't want to have to know all. I don't have time for that.
Yeah, and you're not a music guy who's just going to go to a concert every week.
Right.
I've known people like that, and they knew everything that was coming to town. But you shouldn't have to do that just to know, you know, if Weird Al's coming or the Mountain Ghosts are coming.
I'd like to go to something every couple months. I'm not going to go all the time. So that's my rant.
Sure,
real simple rant, but that's a thing that was on my mind.
You don't want to stop halfway through and realize you've been using the wrong word?
No. No. Oh, I meant Movie. I didn't mean concert. How do I know when movies are playing? How do I know that? I can't come up with any way to find out what the movies are.
You can call Movie Phone.
Oh, I should try that.
It's still operational.
Oh, I meant concert. Concert phone. Okay. Anyway, folks, thanks so much for watching. We sure appreciate it. And if you're watching this as its own separate video, thanks a bunch for doing that. We're going to move on now on the Omnibus to our next segment. And Eric, the next thing we're going to do is the Comic Vault. We're going to tackle Supreme Power. So we're going to do that here in just a second. Everyone, welcome back to the deceptive and controlling Comic Vault. I am Captain Logan.
And I'm Eric.
Today, Eric and I are going to start off with this week's featured book. It's Supreme Power. It's the first 12 issues of JMS's Supreme Power, which was released back in the early 2000s and was requested from our patron, Ian McKee. Thanks a bunch, Ian, for your support on the channel. And today, we're going to talk about this for you. And this is something that I've actually meant to talk about for a long time. I had never read this. I bought it a long time ago. It's JMS. I was curious about it. It's a thing people had told me was worth reading.
This used to be a big deal
as one of the you know, what if superheroes existed in the real world, and kind of, you know, aping superhero, mostly DC archetypes of like yeah, but what if they weren't like the perfect altruistic people they were at least in the Golden Age? And obviously we've done this kind of stuff with those characters specifically lots of times now. This
is coming off the heels of the Ultimates.
Yeah, this reads so much like an artifact from another time now, and it's really interesting because, like, it's weird reading this after a world where, like, injustice exists and stuff like that. And even, well, I guess Kingdom Come predates this, but Kingdom Come was a thing that kind of did this with some of the characters that this is actually things. Yeah, sure, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, this used to be a really big deal. When I was coming into comics, this was a big deal. This is a comic everyone was talking about, and it's
can't tell you the last time I heard anybody mention it until Ian asking us to review it.
Part of it, I think, is that it doesn't have an ending.
Yeah,
it eventually switches over to being Marvel Knights, and apparently JMS was like, Marvel Knights, while less creatively restrictive than regular Marvel, is not as free to be as adult as Max, and he was kind of floundering, and so it just, like, it doesn't even have an ending. It just stops. I think that hurts it in the long run.
It's weird because all Marvel Knights stuff that I know fits in 616. Did they have out-of-continuity stuff?
They must have.
Because this cannot work in that continuity.
No, it must have, because it was a continuation of this.
That's really interesting, yeah.
Yep.
No, I was going to ask you about that. If this was all there was and it actually had an ending, if it was 12 issues like Watchmen and it had an ending, and I know there's like 6 more under the same banner, which we just don't have. We just have this first trade, so that's what.
Yeah, Supreme Power goes to 18, and there's a Hyperion miniseries that's 5 issues that's written by JMS.
Okay. Is any of that stuff in trade?
All of it's in trade.
Oh, okay.
And there's spin-offs. There are books about these characters written by other people.
And we may try to come back to this if there's any interest. Since I had this, and since it was a whole 12 issues we had to read, we decided to start with this and just review this. So I hope Ian doesn't mind, but I couldn't imagine reading all that stuff at once. This is pretty dense. There's a lot here. We'll have a lot to talk about. But I wonder if it was a more concise piece, and if it was just one big hardcover, if maybe we would still be talking about it like we do Watchmen.
I mean, maybe. He kind of did that with Rising Stars. Rising Stars is 24 issues. It's by the same writer.
And I think people talk about.
I think it's a wonderful work, and people don't remember it. Part of that's because of how long it took to come out.
JMS has this in common with Peter David, where he has these like either seminal runs on things or things that he created himself that were beloved and still are with people who are fans of those creators, but they kind of fall away and you don't hear about them.
You don't hear about JMS's Thor at all.
Yeah.
And it was a top 10 book for its entire run.
Wow.
That's really interesting. It wasn't just like the first couple issues. Like issue 8 was a top 10 book.
And JMS isn't a guy who, like Peter David, like makes waves and stuff.
Yeah. Not really.
I don't think.
I mean, a little bit when he left Marvel.
Yeah, he's talked candidly about things, but I think he gets along with people while he's there.
Yeah, it seems to be. He hasn't been banned from any companies like Peter David.
And that's nothing against Peter David. I'm just
I love
saying,
Peter David.
Just factually things we know about these creators.
Peter David seems a little bit more combative.
I just don't know why JMS gets the short of the end of the stick sometimes the way he does. Although he's certainly had. I think he's gotten more opportunities overall than Peter David probably has. I don't know why I'm suddenly comparing these guys, but anyway,
they're similar. They're similar writers, I think. So Supreme Power is the Squadron Supreme, which Hickman used recently.
Did he really?
Yeah, in his Avengers stuff, I'm pretty sure Squadron Supreme plays a role in that. We had a Squadron Supreme book, I think, last year. Nighthawk had a book, I think, last year.
I forgot about that. See, the thing is, I don't know those characters until, I mean, I do now, I read this book, but before this, I didn't know who those characters were, and it was, so, this is one of those things where there are words that get thrown in titles that I don't know are related, so I didn't know that this had anything to do with Squadron Supreme until I read it.
Yeah, and, Squadron Supreme starts in Avengers as Squadron Sinister, which was just a way for the Justice League and the Avengers to fight, and then we just kept using them, and we created a universe where they were superheroes.
And what he means is they were based on DC characters, but they couldn't, those companies weren't going to get together and...
Nighthawk is not Batman. Hyperion is not Superman. Power Princess is not Wonder Woman.
Right.
It's a lot of that.
And
the Wizard's here.
Who's Aquaman.
Yeah, and she was not originally a girl.
Okay.
Because there's notes in the back where like they designed the costumes.
Oh, I didn't look at those. Yeah.
Oh, you have to see what the costumes for Power Princess. It's amazing. Like how adult they're intending to go, and I'm interested to know if they do it.
And there's a Flash kid. Is there a specific parallel with Dr. Spectrum?
He's Green Lantern.
Okay, of course. I just said Spectrum, and then I answered my own question. While I was reading it, I wasn't exactly sure what it was supposed to be, and I guess that makes perfect... I guess it's just because it wasn't an artifact that came to Earth that chose him.
But I don't know what the original origin is, because I'm pretty sure it doesn't come from Hyperion. I'm pretty sure that's part of the kind of ultimization of...
That's why I didn't think of it, because I had my head in a Krypton place. And so I was just thinking, which is funny, I'm going to be talking about Krypton stuff later, but I had my head in Krypton place, so it was hard not to just connect him to Superman mythology. I was like, who is this guy?
No, it seems... my guess is, not having read any of the Squadron Supreme stuff before this, my guess is he streamlined a lot of stuff and makes all of it come from Hyperion and Hyperion's arrival, which is fun because
it makes more sense. It's like the thing in why can't I think of it, the superhero book series I just reviewed.
Wild Cards.
It's like Wild Cards,
yes.
Where it all has to come from the same thing.
Yeah. Well, and it's also coming from Hyperion. I think is really interesting because it literalizes Superman.
Yes.
All superheroes stem from him.
Right, yeah.
Except for maybe Power Princess. I'm really unclear on that, and I hope that's fixed in the next 6 issues. Or I hope that's cleared up, because that's the one thing I'm like, I don't know where this is going or what's happening.
I don't either. Well, I had a hard time not glazing over when she starts explaining their backstory in rhyme, and I like...
Well, and also,
an epic poem.
The pictures are clearly not depicting what's happening, so like she's lying.
That's what I thought.
I think she's crazy.
But I
don't think
sure
she's lying.
Right.
I think she's crazy.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's my read on that.
She's speaking as an epic poet.
Yep.
In those scenes, and then I kept expecting her to keep doing that, and that's not how she regularly talks.
No, it's just like when she's talking about the history or whatever.
Almost as if it was. Almost as if she's Homer, like
almost as if it was already written down. She's just reciting.
That's what I thought it was. Yeah. So maybe she actually believes it, and then we're seeing what really happened.
Yeah, I think that's possible.
Okay.
But
sorry, we digress.
But so the general setup for this is a small boy in a spacecraft from a dying planet comes to Earth, is found by 2 farmers,
and then
immediately the government shows up, takes the baby, and says, we're gonna raise this baby to be the most like pure American we possibly can. They get 2 agents to pretend to be his parents, to raise him to believe as purely as possible in the American ideal, and to believe in state before everything else, kind of.
Also, that they can control him as a weapon.
Yes, and they use him to intervene in different political arenas and things like that, and war zones and whatnot. And then eventually it gets to a point where they have to reveal that this person exists. And
because a reporter found out about him.
Yeah, and so they make him into a superhero, and they reveal him, and they send him around the country, like, putting out fires and things, but they now have another superhero called Dr. Spectrum, who has a piece of Hyperion ship that is merged with him.
He was an agent in the field.
Yeah, and like he has like the most insane willpower. And so he's able to control this thing that's like thought-based.
Yeah, obviously it's Green Lantern. I feel so dumb now because it didn't even occur that I read. Now, to be fair, I was behind today. I read this like an hour before we started recording.
And then, they're now using Dr. Spectrum to go attack other political...
I didn't realize the willpower thing was the reason he was able to control it, though.
Well, that's why they pick him. Is because it's thought-based. It's someone
oh,
has
that's
to be
right.
so,
I forgot it was thought.
so
okay.
focused
right.
that their thoughts will never wander. Because this thing can theoretically seem to do anything. So they're using him now.
And then anybody else who touches it after it's bonded with him,
just
completely
explodes.
Yeah.
So they're now using him to do like covert Black Ops operations, while saying, well, it can't be Hyperion because Hyperion is over here saving a kitten from a tree.
Yeah.
And then Hyperion starts to learn about this. And while this is happening, there's a kid who's a speedster who isn't actually being a superhero. He's just getting endorsements. Mm-hmm. And then there's also a Batman who's fascinating.
That kid is basically what if Peter Parker's uncle didn't get murdered,
mm-hmm.
and
he
just kept doing the wrestling thing. That's what it is.
And then there's a Batman character who's fascinating. He's a black man whose parents were murdered by a white supremacist, and now he's gone extreme the other way. And then there's also an Aquaman-like chick called Amphibian.
I'm not sure what's going on with her.
Who was born to normal parents, but born as like an amphibian thing, and I don't know what's happening with her because it's not resolved in this. And then also there is some kind of ancient goddess that has been worshipped for centuries by this almost like cult
I guess was also from Hyperion's world.
That's what she says in the story, but I don't think that's true. I think she comes from somewhere different. I think she is the one person that we see that does not come from him and his genes and his ship. I think she's the one person, or somehow it just brought her back to life, but I don't think she's actually connected to him in the way she says she is. I don't think she's Supergirl.
Yeah, because she talks about how like they're separated by 2,000 years, and they sent out couples as to different planets, and they got separated.
Yeah, I might be wrong. I only have the 12 issues. My read is that none of that is true.
And like I'm with you, it didn't seem like what we were seeing was exactly what she was saying, but I wasn't sure how.
Well, and it starts breaking down. Like there's a point where she refers to ships, and then we see like Greek ships. Which makes me think.
Yeah, I don't know what that.
They're not actually related. I think she's crazy. That is my read on her. Is that she's a crazy person.
That wasn't really the sense I got from it.
Okay,
but you might be right. I wasn't totally sure how to read it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's frustrating about this is I feel like I should have gotten a complete story with this and
with 12 issues.
Yeah.
It's a real slow decompressed burn. Real slow decompressed, real slow burn. I don't know how to structure those words correctly.
Or I just wish. It was
you decide.
Or I just wish I knew it was resolved in those other 6 issues and I had read all of it. It's just I know it doesn't really end.
I've heard that if you read through the Hyperion mini, it resolves enough.
Oh, okay.
That you could be okay with stopping there.
That's frustrating.
Yeah.
It feels like a thing that would have a definitive ending. Like, it feels like a thing that should be self-contained.
Well, and I wonder, like, it's clearly written to be an ongoing. It's not written to be like a short mini. But I wonder if he had like a 50-issue plan. There would be an ending, but it would be a run.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay.
That's how it reads to me. Is that he has a long game. It's going to be an epic
He's doing
run.
a lot of setup because he's got a lot to say with these characters.
Yeah, and he does have a lot to say with these characters. I think this book is fascinating. I'll right out of the gate say I love this book. I will buy this hardcover, and I will buy the second one because it collects the rest of it and the Hyperion miniseries. It's right in my wheelhouse. I love the Ultimates. I love the Authority. I read this and I'm like, oh man, I really need to get back to Wild Cards. Like I like this stuff a lot. I also think this does a good job of saying it's individual enough from those other things. I don't feel like it's just a retread of the Ultimates or the Authority or Wild Cards or Watchmen.
No, I thought it was really unique.
Yeah,
which is impressive.
Or even Rising Stars, which is also written by the same writer.
Yeah, which is impressive because he's also redoing a thing that was that. In the mid-'80s.
Mm-hmm. Now, from what I understand, that original series is what if superheroes took control and then they were corrupted, whereas his is they never start from a good place.
Yeah.
It's from what I understand of the original series, it is like if the Justice League took over America, what would they do with that, and would they even be able to stay to their pure values? Whereas here they're just messed up.
But he talks in the foreword about how it was difficult for him to make sure that it was separate enough, but still true to that material. Mm-hmm. And so it's cool that it reads as unique as one of those what if superheroes were in the real world, and what if they weren't, you know, what if they, you know, had real character flaws and stuff, and not feel like he was just doing what had been done before. Now, I haven't read that stuff, but it reads, like, first of all, I think it's important to say that you don't need to have that stuff at all.
No, because neither of us have read the original or the miniseries.
It reads like he created these characters from the ground up.
Yeah.
So if it being a reimagining from something else, it reads like something completely brand new.
I want this to be a Netflix show, or an HBO show.
Really? Okay.
I think the first 6 issues is the best pilot I've ever seen for a superhero show.
Well, here's the thing. I didn't have that with it because it reads so much like a TV show that I feel like I already have that show. Like, I just don't need it. You know what I mean?
That's fair. I just...
He does a really good job with the in-moment flashbacks without making me feel like an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
He does a lot a TV stuff. And I mean, JMS is... He's a TV stuff.
He does do a lot of TV stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you're a TV writer.
But it kind of works.
Yeah. There's one scene that I think you can remove entirely that would work on TV. When he goes to the confessional, and we have a whole page of just one guy talking to the priest, and then leaves. I was like, that works in TV because it's 30 seconds. This is a whole page.
Now, to be fair, there are things that he does in trying to utilize the comic book medium that you can't do in other things.
The last issue is wonderful.
Which I have reservations about. I'm back and forth on it. I don't love right away the idea of having 4 subplots happening simultaneously on the same page.
Oh, I don't
immediately like that. Until I was really engaged in each of them, I found that to be a bit of a chore, and I wondered if I shouldn't read one strip and then the second strip and then the third strip.
I thought about doing it like that too.
I thought about doing it like that, but what I didn't care for about that is I'm almost, like, not mid-sentence, but mid-conversation, I'm having to jump to another subplot and then remember what just happened, and so then I flip the page and I have to get back into a different mode for each of the 4. Now, the 4th one is really interesting because for 6 pages, nothing's happening, and except for day is turning to night, and then you find out that what you've been learning about in the other 3 completely inform what the whole point of that 4th one is. That's really cool, and so ultimately I really appreciated what it was doing, but it took me too long to get into that idea.
My biggest problem was I thought there were wasted panels. Where, like, it would just be like...
It also took me too long to realize that I was supposed to read all the way across the page.
Wait, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, because I read down.
I don't know how you'd even do it like that, but no, you're supposed to read all the way across the page.
Oh, okay. I didn't read it like that. But my biggest issue was things where it was like, because it's... I'm trying to describe this. It is 4 vertical panels that take up the whole page, and so the top panel is one thing, the second panel is one thing, the third panel is one thing, and the 4th panel is one thing. There were a couple of instances where I really didn't like it, where it was like...
Yeah, I just cannot show this book to the camera because there's so much nudity. But,
and not until, like, issue, like, 14 or 15.
I mean, you go all the way across, because the action keeps going. Like,
well, yeah, but it just keeps intercutting anyways. Like, I read this, and then this.
You could do it that way, but I think that would frustrate me even more, because there are... It's clear that there are certain bits where he's wanting you to go straight across so you don't have to remember this to the next thing. Like this is a part of a conversation, and then you get to the next part of it. Like,
yeah, I just read it more chopped up than you did.
Okay, I mean, I guess you can do it.
But
that way.
I don't like these. I don't like these. You only have one panel a page to communicate something about the story. I don't like where it's just like, and then the water bubbles, or someone's flying, or I thought like that was a waste. I don't know how else you would do it. I guess for some of that communication, just like in between scenes, but it's already so jumpy. I don't feel like I would be confused if all of a sudden Hyperion was somewhere.
Yeah, it's almost like it's being cinematic and doing things that only a comic can do simultaneously.
It's still decompressed, even in this style where you only get one panel a page for each story. It still feels decompressed.
And the thing is, he needed all those things. The idea is all these things are happening simultaneously, and that's why we have it that way. And again, it is really cool because because the comic medium is maybe the best place to do a thing like that, where you can actually show us that simultaneously these things are going on, because you're not having to cut minute to minute from different things to different things. It's very difficult on television or in a movie to communicate that a scene is happening at the same time as another scene. So, I mean, that is really cool. But then when you make it really cinematic, like, you're just looking at something happening with no dialogue, then it feels like I'm back into the movie mode again.
Mm-hmm.
So I see what you're complaining about that.
But yeah, I like the last show. I adored this. I thought this was great. I'm a big fan of JMS in general.
Yeah.
I really appreciated and liked how adult it is. Which is part of why I want this to be like a Netflix series, an HBO series, is I'm still waiting for the big adult superhero thing that doesn't have to be grounded.
Yeah.
And also, there are things in this book that I think need to be on television right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's things in this book that really need to be on television right now, and so
it's really sophisticated and thoughtful about race issues.
Yeah,
and things like that. There are really compelling arguments on both sides of that issue in the book. I don't even want to really get into it because I want to encourage people to read this.
No, I agree. Well, and I also think
I get where Nighthawk is coming from. I guess I guess I tend to agree more with Hyperion, but then he's also... I agree with the Blur.
Like, he's the one that I was like, yeah, that character needs to exist in television right now. But I also thought the politics were really...
But I mean, Hyperion has a speech about it.
Yeah.
Which I do kind of agree with.
No, and I agree. I sent you that panel.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, somebody wrote a comic book about this. Who knew?
Where he says, like, let's help everyone.
Yeah.
Well, you see, but then the more I'm thinking about it, no, I guess you're right. I guess there is a three-pronged argument going on, and the Blur probably has the closest to my feelings on that, because the flaw in Hyperion's logic is that because he says we should be completely colorblind, and the flaw in his logic is that we're just not there yet. And you do have to have to think about those issues and the fact that people aren't.
Yeah. Yeah. Even if you are, not everyone else is.
Yeah, because it's too easy to pretend like you're helping everyone else when you're not focused enough on the people who need it most.
Yeah. But
it's a really heavy book.
Yeah,
and impossible not to talk about politics within.
I really like the narrative. I really like some of the politics of the book, not the like political points of the book, but that like I like that the government isn't just all straw men. Like they're not all General Lang.
No, it's really nuanced about because there are people in the government who are trying to control Hyperion who kind of come to care about him and who sort of feel bad about things that they feel like they have to do. There's some wonderful ends justifies the means versus value-based ethics questions in this. And I have not... I'll go this far. I don't think I've sympathized with a government that was trying to force someone to do their bidding, pretending like they were his friend, like this ever. I don't think I've ever sympathized with the government as much as I have in this. And they are the bad guys in that situation.
Absolutely.
But then you also have to hold Hyperion accountable for things that he's doing, but he's wonderfully sympathetic as well, and you can completely understand how he gets to where he gets. I also think it's really impressive that there's a moment that I thought was kind of a light switch moment with Hyperion that the farther I read, the more I totally bought it, where I was like, he's gone too quickly against the guy. For a minute, I thought it was kind of a typical TV thing where it was like, well, he just hates them because they're lying to him, and he's not even figured out why they're lying yet. And then the farther I read, the more I was like, no, this is exactly what this guy would do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I also like that he's not... It's not immediately like crazy evil Superman.
He's not just going around killing everyone.
Yeah, yeah. No, he's really thinking about it. He doesn't exactly.
And I love the collateral damage and friendly fire thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Where people get hurt and die just as a consequence of him walking around.
The bullets ricochet off of him. Yeah. And things like that.
Well, and where you somewhat sympathize with the government a little bit, except for obviously their motivations are not completely altruistic. Yeah, you have to cordon this kid off while he's growing up, because that's the thing we have to sweep under the rug a lot with Superman, where he's just able to control his powers too readily. And Smallville sometimes handled that as well as they possibly could, where basically the Crypto-Freaks were what this guy is, and Clark just got lucky and had really good parents. Where they do the puberty metaphor in that show with Heat Vision, where he almost sets girls on fire when he gets aroused, but it doesn't actually happen. This is the book where that kind of thing happens. The thing with the dog.
The thing with the dog is great. Yeah. Like, it's so good. And this works on the... it's kind of somewhere between the two things we do with Superman, where like sometimes Superman's powers don't hit till puberty, and sometimes he's a super strong baby.
Yeah.
He's a strong baby that becomes Superman. Like it's a slightly more gradual thing, but it's not like all of a sudden I have X-ray vision, I have heat vision. Like,
well, and Smallville is that way too.
Yeah, that's true.
Where as he's getting older, he's getting stronger. He's not like early on in that show, bullets bounce off him, but he gets bruises, and later he doesn't have bruises. I mean, that's the thing I always really appreciated in that show, and he develops some of his powers over time. They're not fully consistent about it, and I don't know why one of the first things he can do is fly, but he never uses it. That always bugged me in that show. First episode, he's hovering over death. No, that's dumb. When you develop superhero in like the 4th or 5th season, no, that's ridiculous. But this does that right.
Yeah.
Where his skin is getting stronger over time, and they say that early on you could jackhammer into him for like an hour, and then eventually you'd actually start to scratch him. But as he gets older, you can't do that anymore, and you have to come up with basically atomic alternatives.
Yeah.
If you need to kill
Which is
him.
such a cool thing. I don't know why I've never seen like the atomic thing they come up with. I was like, why isn't this been more thing? Like, why isn't just everyone rip this off? This is a great science fiction weapon.
The atomic bomb that doesn't have radiation, or
yeah, but like, there's a way about the way it's explained where I'm like, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
like, that seems like a thing we would just all be writing.
Well, and the way they lured him, I totally bought.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
And that was really sad. I mean, I don't know. Do you feel for this guy? Like I do. I really feel for him.
I feel for everyone. Like the guy that lures him and then kills himself, kind of.
Yeah.
Even him, I was like, because here's the thing. The thing that the book never lets you forget is everything that these people have done is terrible. However, Hyperion is terrifying.
Yeah.
One of my favorite bits is when the parents...
and we try to do this all the time with Superman now.
Yeah. When they ask the parents, they're like, well, you spent all of this time with him. Like, did you come to love him like a son? And they're like, yeah, kind of, but I was never not scared.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah, and that moment where they don't want anything to do with each other anymore.
Yeah. I also like the moment where they sleep together and it never happens again.
Yeah.
I like that. I wish that was followed up on, because I can never get a sense after that moment whether they start bickering more or...
Yeah, no, I had that too.
I wish it was followed up on a little bit.
My assumption is that the relationship after that is just real distant. They hardly speak to each other.
I love the scene where he's like, do you actually love Mom? And he's like, yeah, of course I do. And there's weird metaphors going on there too for like actual parents raising, where like the parents are kind of drifting apart from each other, but they don't want the kids to know, and things like that.
So there was a question I had about the logic on the side of the government A, and B, Hyperion's lack of reaction when they tell him that his foster parents have died in a boat accident, but they actually you just go off and live new lives under assumed names. Hyperion was supposed to go with them. And the government guys convince him not to go, and then his parents get killed. How is he not already angry with them?
Well, it's... because it's not both of them. It's just supposed to be a trip for him and his dad, and his mom's like, well, I'll go with you. And
right, I know that, but at that time, he still thought he was going. They both go. If Hyperion had been there, in his mind, they wouldn't have died. Why is he not upset about that? Like,
yeah, that's true.
Any standard TV show would have done a whole episode where he's angry with the government and wants revenge or something.
That's true.
I was a little surprised that he didn't have any reaction at all.
I mean, he did have a reaction. Like he immediately freaks out and like goes to the bottom of the sea and
he has a reaction to their death, but he doesn't blame anyone, and there are people to blame. At least in his mind, I would think. I mean, he blames them later for the actual bad things they have done to him. I don't understand how that doesn't qualify, especially. And I wish it had come up, because I don't think it does. I wish it had come up once he realizes that they have a spaceship and they've been lying to him all these years, because they claim that his real parents died in like a plane crash or something. I forget what.
Yeah, they were like scientists or something.
Yeah, and they died, and he finds out that that they've been keeping a spaceship all along, and that they know that he comes from somewhere else, and that all along they've been grooming him to be to be a weapon for them, and he should have a point where he says, "Oh yeah, and also, I could have saved my parents," because although no, because he does find out that they're still alive. I forgot about that.
Yeah. He finds out that his parents.
He finds out everything.
My guess would be the reason he doesn't blame the government is that he's been raised since birth, like, never to blame the government. Like maybe it wouldn't even cross his mind at that moment because he's not started coming apart yet and started realizing all.
Maybe.
Well, and one of the things about this book that I think works really effectively, and he talks about it in the foreword, is that there are no captions. You're never in anyone's head.
That's right.
Which works really well.
Again, it's a TV show.
Well, but also everyone's morally ambiguous.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that works really well.
In that way, it would work really well as a TV show.
Yeah.
I guess part of the reason, and I'm not even resisting this, I guess part of the reason that I didn't have that reaction, like, I'd like to see this adapted, is it feels so much like a product of its time. I feel like a lot of people, even if this was adapted exactly the way it is, as much as you can do that, I think a lot of people would look at it and be like, yeah, it's another one of those. It's just a dime a dozen.
But I don't think it would.
It isn't. But that, I don't think you could even get people really excited about it because we have so many things like it.
But not on TV and not in the movies. We don't have that live action.
Here's the thing. We kind of do in that we play the cynical superhero question all the time. But
this is so much more
stuff. No, it is, absolutely. And so much more like actually mature. But
yeah. I mean, obviously, my first pick of all these would be wild cards. Like, obviously, that's the.
I don't know. I'll say, because I don't know how excited I can get about wild cards being adapted either. It's such a good prose thing.
That's true.
But no, actually, I would rather see this adapted than wild cards. The more I'm thinking about it, I think it's more easily adaptable too.
And I also think
because this does very much read as storyboards.
Yeah. And I also think that Marvel is willing to take risks on properties. Like, I will never get the authority, even though all of their major things aren't working at DC, they'll never try something experimental like that.
Yeah.
They'll never actually do the R-rated superhero thing, with like a group of characters you've never heard of. Marvel could.
Yeah,
I don't think they would go back to this, but I think they
Watchmen
could.
is because it's so popular.
It's Watchmen, yeah. No, I really adored this. I will buy that book, and I will buy the second one.
No, I liked it a lot, too. And I was not in the mood for a thing like this because I just got done with wild cards, and I was kind of I've been lately more in a traditional superhero mood as opposed to the more realistic what if kind of thing. But this brought me back into that mood, which is a big testament to it because I wasn't really that excited about reading another one of those right now.
Yeah. It is slow and it is wordy. I will tell people that.
The page. I don't think it's as slow as you make it out to be.
I think more could have gotten done in 12 issues.
Yeah.
Like, when I get to the end of issue 12, I'm like,
fair,
oh, that's all that's happened.
But
part of it's because of all the subplots.
No, that's fair, but as I'm reading along, I'm not looking at my watch and...
No, me either. But like, when I got to the end, I was like, and we never did anything with Amphibian. 12 issues, we never did anything
I definitely had that feeling at the end of it, but it was a page-turner for me.
Well, and there's also
like, as I'm going along, it was a
point, maybe around like 7 or 8, where I'm like, how long ago did we introduce all of the other superheroes? Because we have that one issue that gives all the instructions. I'm like, we didn't touch back on like any of those.
Yeah.
And then we start doing it.
This would have felt like much more of a slog reading in issues, most certainly. I mean, this is a thing to read, to sit down and read all together.
It's because he chose to have a point of view character. It's all kind of through Hyperion's. We go to other people, but like, this is Hyperion's story. He didn't write it like a team book, where like we're following all these different people. It kind of becomes that, but it's all through Hyperion and Hyperion's world, and then it outstretches from that.
Which is a really interesting idea, because being sort of the anti-Superman, because he's raised by the government, instead of actually being allowed to be a traditionally raised American kid, he is the most alien thing, obviously, on the planet. There's nothing else like him, and yet he is kind of our end of the world, and it totally works. I love the speech he has about how maybe in order to in order to save the world and bring people together, you need someone objective enough.
An alien,
you need an alien that's objective enough, that's not connected to anyone else. I really
doesn't see borders.
I really bought into that, and obviously I'm making comparisons the entire time to Superman because he's the direct analog, and I'm thinking, wow, that's a really interesting argument for why Superman might be somewhat inherently problematic, because he's raised with particular values, and I mean, like, Hyperion is also and raised with some of those same values, trying to be forced to be the all-American, kid. But then when he steps behind all that and kind of sees the facade and stuff, he and sees himself as the alien, he thinks about all that very differently. And so in one way, Superman is that, right? Where he's different from the rest of us, and he has if he sees himself as human and cares about us, he has to be, extra responsible because he has these powers that require this massive sense of responsibility. But on the other hand, if he's raised too American and too isolated, does he not think about certain kinds of people as more his people than other people? And that's not a thing we really talk about a whole lot with Superman, because he is usually supposed to be the ideal, and he is colorblind and he doesn't have that. But in real life, would he? You know what I mean? Would he have too much of the Midwest kind of traditionally conservative kinds of views, where he wouldn't even notice certain oppression that happens to entire kinds of people,
or just other countries? Superman defines himself as an American,
right?
Could he help himself but think of himself as an American, and as America as he is?
And that's why Hyperion has a great point. And on the surface, it sounds like he's right, but then you take it to its furthest conclusion, and it's terrifying, because he says, well, I'm an American, but I'm not an American, I'm for the whole world, and now he thinks it's his duty to go and make decisions unilaterally.
Yeah. I love the idea. If we assume that the couple that find him are Jonathan and Martha.
Right.
I love the idea that the government takes him away from the most, pure traditional American family and artificially creates the most pure traditional American family. I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Because you can make an argument that if only they had left him where he was, they might have gotten effectively what they want, except they wouldn't be able to control him. So he would have all the values that they want him raised with, except for the loyalty one. Except for the loyalty to us, regardless of what we tell you to do.
Well, and as the book goes on, there's this sense of, it's kind of a no-win situation. They were never going to get that in the end. There is no way that this doesn't end with him finding out what's going on, and starting to question things. Just as a developing, maturing adult. Even if he didn't find out all the conspiracy stuff, he's going to find out things about the government that the government does.
What makes this a difficult question to answer, the thing I'm about to ask you, is that we don't have a complete piece here. But does this read a little bit like, sort of like a 1984 of superhero things, just in that it's... I don't mean that it's like a massively exaggerated thing. I just mean that it's a cautionary thing. It's not optimistic, really. Or is it?
But the way I read it, I felt like it could have gotten to that place.
Yeah, and that's what I'm wondering. Is the point of this to say, here's how everything could go bad, or is it just in this world everything starts from that place, but it could get better? I just don't know, because I don't have the rest of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think this book is optimistic or cynical. I think it's kind of just putting superheroes in the real world, and what is that like?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's cynical either. Because I cared about everybody.
Yeah. It's not. They're not all cartoon characters. And
it doesn't say that no one has humanity. I mean, there is humanity all over this book.
Yeah, and it also doesn't say that there aren't bad people and there aren't good people. It's just everyone's kind of varying grades of good and bad.
And I didn't it gets really violent and it's really adult. I didn't find this book merciless. I thought it was.
It doesn't feel dour.
It was kind of entertaining.
Yeah,
and I'm surprised by that, because everything we're talking about sounds real heavy, real heady, but I was entertained by it. And there are moments of levity.
Yeah, and there's some genuinely funny moments and things like that. There's one, I can't remember what it was, but there's one that I thought was really funny. But I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. But there's a genuinely funny joke in that book. It's really enjoyable. It's not just intellectually stimulating. It's enjoyable.
Yeah.
I really liked it. I really want to see where it goes as much as it goes.
So we want to thank Ian a whole lot for asking us to review this, and I'm so glad that I read this.
Yeah, me too.
And I guess it's I feel like I need to go back and sit down and watch and revisit read and revisit Watchmen now, just because I'm doing all of these kinds of things right now anyway. Did Wild Cards and now this. And
you should. We should do Rising Stars.
It might be time to return to Ultimates.
Oh yeah, we still have to Ultimates too.
We were going to do Ultimates too,
yep.
so we should probably go back and do that at some point. But anyway, so Eric, what else would you like to talk about? You had some more comic book things.
I do. I have some more comic book things.
And I have one extra comic book thing.
Do you want to mix and match, or do you want me to go just through all mine and then you go through?
Well, do you have anything that you think is going to take quite a while to talk about? Because you have, what, 2, 3 things there?
I have 3 things.
Why don't you do 2 of the shorter ones, and then I'll do mine, and then you do mine, maybe.
Okay.
Is that...
All right, so I'll do Berzerk last.
Okay. Is Berzerk the long one? Okay.
Probably.
Sure, go ahead.
So this I read in the half hour. Cap had to set some stuff up after I came home from work before we started recording. So I decided to read the first volume of the Ultraman manga, which I read before. I own the first 4, I've read the first 2. And I've been in tokusatsu mood lately. Which will be nice for what we're going to cover on the next on the next omnibus. But I just pulled this out and I was like, I'll just read as much as I can of this. And I read the whole volume because manga reads really fast. This is it's interesting to read this because I'm not an Ultraman guy. I've seen the first couple episodes of Ultraman, but that's kind of it. I don't follow Ultraman. This is a sequel to the original Ultraman, ignoring everything that came after it. Because Ultraman is something that kind of has a continuity. And I think they even, in more recent stuff, have just gone like, and all that stuff that wasn't in continuity, it's just alternate dimensions, and now it's all, like, everything is now canon kind of a thing. This exists as if nothing has happened since the original Ultraman. We find out that the original Ultraman... Let me back up for a second. The premise of Ultraman...
So it sort of does that Godzilla thing?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. The premise of Ultraman is that there is a group of people called the Science Patrol, who I don't know what they do because I've never read Ultraman. They just seem to be like kind of like science police, if that makes sense.
Could you get away with that title? Science Patrol?
In the 1950s, sure. They're this group that I guess I think they're like the X-Files. Like they deal with weird things.
Yeah.
And then giant monsters start showing up. And this alien called Ultraman, I guess, merges... I'm not sure... They in this book, they refer to him as Ultraman, but he merges with a human being. And the human being has the ability to turn into Ultraman.
Oh,
and he's a big giant guy. I don't know if that being has its own name. They refer to him as... They refer to Ultraman as... Oh, it's on the first page. I can find it real quick. The Giant of Light? I don't know if like that's the entity and then merged as Ultraman, because they also seem to refer to just the entity as Ultraman, so I don't know. And at the end of the series, the alien leaves the guy, and the guy continues on with normal life, and he goes back into space because the series is over. This picks up a little bit after that. That guy has had a kid, and we find out has no memories of the period from when Ultraman first showed up to when he left. The guy has no memories of that. He's like, everyone tells me I was in the Science Patrol. I don't remember that happening. And then we find out his kid has superpowers. And that he has superpowers. His kid falls three floors. And is fine. And then some aliens start showing up, and there's a point when he's young where the government, where the guy currently running the Science Patrol, which as far as anyone knows has been shut down but is still running, comes to the dad and is like, we have this footage that we've doctored so that it doesn't include this, but there was like a bizarre plane accident that like there's the airplane company says was not a mechanical failure, but that's the only thing it could be. That's because the Science Patrol doctored the footage to hide the shadow of a monster destroying the plane. So they're readying for another alien invasion. They make like an Ultraman suit for the guy to wear to fight monsters. And then a monster finally shows up, goes after his son. He shows up. He's like, "I'm Ultraman." There's a great panel where he's like, it's a Superman shirt rip where he's like, "I'm Ultraman." And his dad's getting beat up, and then the head of the Science Patrol is like, "Hey, your dad's dying. We have a suit we made for you. He's not gonna like it, but if you want to go help him, you can." And then he goes down and he fights the monster. That's the entire book. It's really fast. It's all origin. Also, and I don't know if this ever changes, I don't think it does in the first 4 volumes I have, he's not giant. It's more like Kamen Rider. He's normal-sized, all the monsters normal-sized. They refer to Ultraman as giant, so it's not like this is a slightly alternate continuity. He's not giant, the monsters aren't giant. I don't know if we're building to that point, but at least as far as this one goes, he's not giant. I like this. It's weird, I think the artwork is darker than the actual storytelling. And so I get a darker vibe from the story that I think
interesting.
I might, just looking at the page, just looking at like the typed page.
There's almost a juxtaposition.
Yeah, where the artwork is very dark and very serious, and this is one of the rarer mangas where it is an artist and a writer team.
Yeah.
There is a writer and there's an artist.
One guy.
Yeah, usually it's one person. I like it. It's kind of the only thing we have for tokusatsu reading material in America.
Wow.
We've never published the Kamen Rider mangas. We've never published really Guyver over here. Like, this is kind of all we got right now. Although I think Comixology has, digitally you can get the original Kamen Rider manga.
Oh, that's nice.
This is kind of all we have right now. If you don't know about this, you should... I recommend this to Kamen Rider fans because it feels more like Kamen Rider than what I traditionally think of Ultraman as. Because it's nothing giant. It's just like a dude running around in a cool suit. It's fun. It's really fast read.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing I know about Ultraman is that he's really big and he fights big monsters. We played that Super Nintendo game.
We
did.
did.
We ever talk about that?
I don't think we did.
Did we actually mention it on camera?
I don't think we did.
Because that was hilarious.
It sucks.
It's terrible, but we had a lot of fun. Like, Jason liked it.
Yeah. It
was very counterintuitive.
Yep. It was not great.
We should do we should do a playthrough on that at some point on the it'll be 5 minutes on the Patreon show.
Okay, so the other thing I'm going to talk about is James Bond Hammerhead, which is the third volume released by Dynamite. When I read this originally, I was really kind of blown away by this, and I was like, this is easily the best of the three, and more importantly, a huge return to form for Andy Diggle. With Diggle's name on it going into this, I was kind of like, it's probably going to be fine. Diggle's been in a rut for like a decade now. I haven't liked anything he's done since. And I love The Losers, and I love Green Arrow Year One. And then he went to Marvel, and his career has never been the same.
Yeah, you always say that he seems to just kind of phone stuff in. And
everything he writes feels phoned in. I don't know. I haven't read some of his more recent Create Your Own stuff, but I've also not heard good things about them either. But I love The Losers, and I love Green Arrow. Those two books are the closest things you can get to like an action movie in comic book form. It's really good. Both of them are drawn by Jock. That probably helps.
Yeah.
In my introduction, Jock. So he wrote Hammerhead, which I would describe as quintessential. This is the Bond movie I want.
Oh, cool.
It is the big action set pieces and the fast pace and the kind of going globetrotting of the films with some of the more complex and thoughtful aspects of the novels. It's kind of everything great about Bond put in one place. It's just a really good, like, it's not too big, which is a problem I think most modern, maybe all Bond movies after a certain point have. It goes so big, like, this is big, but it's not so big. He's got a really good handle on James Bond. The villain is fascinating. The villain is someone referred to as Kraken.
Ooh,
and
that's a cool name.
We're told that they are a staunch anti-capitalist, and the kind of twist is you discover that they're not so much anti-capitalist as they are, like, imperialist. The motivation... Remember when I said last time that, like, all British science fiction starts with, and then we got the British Empire back? The motivation of the villain is, we're going to bring the British Empire back. And uses Make England Great Again in a way that did not take me out of it. Like, it wasn't like, I was like, oh yeah, like, we all did that. It came out during the election cycle.
Oh, okay.
So like that was a thing. It's not a mistake that's there.
Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting, where it was James Bond is a servant of the government, a servant of the state, and the villain is a nationalist. That's not a thing I can think of in a lot of James Bond things, where they're just like, just really purely like England. It continues the violence of the Warnella stuff. I think all the Dynamite books will have that kind of edgier, more about you're not going to get this in the movies kind of a thing. But it's a little bit funnier Bond. It's not as cold and distant as Warnellis is. It's just really enjoyable.
It doesn't sound real self-serious or anything.
No, but it is serious when it needs to be serious. You know, it's really quintessentially
sure, but it doesn't
James
sound
Bond.
like it's trying to say, look how important I am. It sounds like it's just telling a story.
Yeah, it is. It just feels like a Bond adventure. That's a little bit topical, but not like beating you over the head with it.
Yeah.
I really like this.
There's a lot of things that are going on in the real world in the background in a lot of Bond stuff.
Yeah. I really like this. I don't think you have to read the first two to read this. I like this completely stands alone.
Do you think it's as good as the Ellis stuff?
I do. I think it's more purely Bond. I think Ellis has I don't think Ellis likes Bond, which I think I talked about last time.
Yeah.
His Bond is a very cold person. This is a likable Bond to some degree.
His take on it, where Diggle's just doing traditional Bond.
Or it's Diggle's take on it. Diggle's James Bond is a little bit more likable.
Yeah.
But it's quite good. If you like James Bond, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend the Ellis stuff to people that only like James Bond movies. This is going to be a little bit more violent than the movies, but you can read this if you've never read the James Bond book. Yeah, it's more traditional Bond. It's really good. Diggle has written one more miniseries. It hasn't been put out yet, but I'm really excited to read that. The next one that I have to read, which I don't own yet, is Black Box, which is written by Benjamin Percy, who's the current writer of Green Arrow. So that's the next one I'll read whenever I decide to buy that. But I've now gone through the 3 that I own. But yeah, big recommend for Hammerhead. I think it's really good.
The one solo thing I want to talk about this week, and I
wanted to read this, but I did not get a chance.
I haven't read any. Yeah, and we might revisit this at some point if you look at it, because there's stuff to sink our teeth into with this, and I'm just going to do a real quick little overview thing. But I don't have any new comics this week. I haven't been to the comic shop in a couple of weeks, and so I may run down some pulls next time. But anyway, so I'm going to talk a little bit about World of Krypton, which DC's been selling really hard since the TV show started, or a couple of weeks before the TV show started. And we mentioned last show that it was kind of weird that they put out the first issue of this. This is John Byrne with pictures from the TV show on the cover, or drawings for of the likenesses of those characters on the cover, and I was like, well, it's not that world at all. Why are you doing that? And I thought it was a new thing called World of Krypton, and then they're just
it was really weird because you just got this trade. We were talking about, we bought the trade, and then I was like, hey, they're putting out a free thing that's the first issue of that.
Yeah, it was really strange. Now that I've read this, I totally get why they did that. Now, it is kind of weird that they put those likenesses on the cover, but I guess it was kind of just to sell it. I would really recommend, if you were watching the Krypton show, that you read this, because it informs it a lot more than I expected it to.
Interesting.
It's not that world. It's not exactly the same thing, most certainly. But
you think the makers of the show have read this?
Well, they have to have, because they pulled characters out of it that I'm pretty sure were only in this. The Black Zero thing comes from this. That's a thing I didn't realize. I thought Black Zero was just a spaceship. This is probably the reason that Zod's ship is called Black Zero in Man of Steel. If memory serves, that's what that is.
Obviously, David Goyer has read John Byrne's Superman. Like, that obviously informs his Krypton.
Yeah, and Goyer's, running that show.
Yeah.
Or he's one of the producers on that show, and wrote the pilot, or co-wrote the pilot. But anyway, so Black Zero is the in Byrne's Krypton is the underground rebellion that is trying to overthrow the government, that ultimately ends up leading to the destruction of Krypton.
Interesting.
And I kind of wonder if they're maybe going to try to head in that direction with the TV show. And we don't know a lot about their Black Zero yet, so I don't know what exactly they're doing. But it's kind of, so far, just in the background. I'm gonna review that later. But so far, they're there, and the government is trying to stomp them out. But we don't know exactly what they want beyond just, well, we have this evil, oppressive government we're trying to get rid of. So it's kind of fun because you sympathize with them to a degree, because it is an oppressive government, and they are taking our freedoms away, and our freedom, because I'm Kryptonian. They are taking Kryptonians' freedoms away, and I'm jumping all over the place. That's the thing that's kind of weird in this, is they call themselves human, but they're on Krypton. They say human a lot. Which I guess I sort of appreciate, because it is a, how do we perfect our society as much as possible without losing our humanity? It might come off corny and weird if we say Kryptoninanity or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we did that, so they kind of, so Byrne, doesn't even mess with that or talk about it. It's just, yeah, we're on a planet called Krypton, but we're humans. Mm-hmm. Which I think is totally fair, but I was kind of surprised by it. They use the word human a lot. But anyway, so the idea with this book, it's 4 issues, and it spans a lot of time. And I initially thought, just thumbing through this, that it was 4 different stories, and it's not. It's one big story that spans a whole bunch of time, and it's kind of multi-generational, but that gets complicated because the Kryptonians are elongating their lifespans, and some of them are thousands of years old, which is a thing I did not know about Burns Krypton. And so the idea is not just that we're trying to have genetic perfection, and that's why parents don't copulate the normal way, and why they don't allow any kind of imperfections in the genome, which Man of Steel used with the Codex. But we find out that they also are trying to be immortal and live as long as humanly possible.
Does it explain why they're so opposed to any skin showing outside of the face?
Yes.
Okay.
And that is fascinating.
Okay.
And I'll get to that.
Interesting.
Yes. Thanks for bringing that up. So if I forget to get to that, remind me.
Yeah.
And I will spoil this some for folks that don't get around to reading it. This is the thing you didn't even know existed. I'm glad that DC is putting this back in the purview, because I think it's really good. I have some issues with it, but it is fast. It's not my Krypton. Weirdly, like, I like a lot of Burns' ideas that end up informing other versions of Krypton more than I like Burns' Krypton, I think.
So this did not feel like, oh, this is the Krypton book I've always wanted to read.
No, but I mean, I already had that with Anderson's book. That's
true.
The thing.
That's
it's like
true.
Anderson made the definitive Krypton for me in blending a bunch of different versions of it together, and so I don't know. I like that amalgamation better than I like Burns in general, which is probably fighting words for some people, because John Byrne is a lot of people's definitive Superman. But I kind of almost like his Superman more than I like his Krypton. But his Krypton is necessary for more of the Krypton that I like, I guess.
Well, but I also don't know anyone that has like a definitive, like, fighting words kind of like, because Krypton, we've talked about before, can go anywhere. Like, it could be a really bad society that deserves to be exploited. It could be a really pure society. It could be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, is there a quintessential Krypton? You know, the only take on that.
If any person has, like, well, I only like Krypton when they're all pure. Superman should come from a pure world, or Superman should come from a world that was meant to be, that was doomed, you know, from the get-go. I don't know if anyone has a real staunch...
Yeah, I like that take a little better, but I like it, but I kind of prefer a Krypton where there's a little bit more passion, which is what the TV show is attempting. But then this starts more from that place, and then over time you see why they got more stale and more sterile, and it's very, very interesting. Regardless of all of that. No, you're cool. So the idea is that part of the way Kryptonians thousands of years ago, and you know, going all the way up to just I guess a couple hundred years before. Well, now I'm trying to remember. No, it is still thousands of years. Excuse me, because we have an L that lives for so long that he's just been around for a long time. Anyway, so the part of the way that the Kryptonians elongate their lives is with cloning, and they each have a clone of themselves, and then they harvest organs from that clone throughout their life, and they get I think they get 3 clones for different stages of their lives, and they harvest the organs from that clone, and that's part of how they elongate their lives. And as time goes on, they come up with more methods to do this, and eventually they come up with methods that are considered more humane. But Black Zero comes together because they don't think that what they're doing with the clones is humane, and they think the clones should be free, and that they should get to live amongst the society, even though the clones are apparently like brain dead. And I guess they think that you shouldn't clone a person and just use them as an object for your own use and desire, and it's not enough that... Because the Kryptonian society thinks that it's good enough just that, well, we don't let them think for themselves, and so they're not really alive. And so there's a big kind of, existential question with that. And so anyway, ultimately there ends up being a big giant war. And what eventually leads us to what the society looks like at the end, where no one, like you were talking about, is really talking and communicating with each other very much, and they cover their bodies head to toe and stuff like that. Is that we get to a point where you're supposed to be completely isolated and not actually talk to anyone. Hardly at all. It becomes really taboo to even have physical interaction with anyone because we're afraid of more wars and things happening.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool where it goes to because we basically just completely lose our humanity in order to try to save it. and but Black Zero is still there and still trying to. Basically, Black Zero also loses its humanity at the same time as it's trying to save it, because it thinks that Krypton itself deserves to die because it allowed this cloning culture thing to happen in the first place, and so
should be allowed to die.
Yeah, and so they want it, completely decimated. One of the things that's weird about this book is that there's a different framing device almost every issue. By the third issue. I think the first issue is just straightforward, and then after that we have framing devices, and so you have you have Seagal, who is the character that we follow in the TV show.
Okay.
He's adapted from this. You have him looking back on things that were happening from a long time ago, and then you have later on. Jor-El looking back on him, and then you have Superman looking back on Jor-El, and it's really strange.
So Superman shows up in this book.
Yeah, and he's explaining how all of this leads to the destruction of Krypton to Lois. It's like the first time that he's telling her what exactly happened with this planet. And at first I was sort of like, why are we talking about, why are we going back this far, and why are we dealing with specifically this clone war? And then it turns out that that's the catalyst that ultimately leads to the destruction of the planet, and it's all interconnected, and it is one big story, but it spans so much time that it's kind of too complicated to just follow one character throughout it, and so it doesn't do that. But it is weird that we just have one framing device. It would almost be better if it starts with Superman, I think.
Yeah, that's what I immediately thought when you were like, and then Superman's like, listen, like, why wouldn't Superman just tell Lois the whole? Well, how is that not your framing device?
And I think part of the reason it does that is because it's trying really hard to be readable issue to issue if you don't have it all together. And reading it in trade, that gets a little bit maddening. There are a couple of places where entire scenes you've read before get reprinted in the middle of an issue. And if you were, if you just bought one issue outside of the rest of it, that you wouldn't even notice that. And it's kind of banking on more people doing that, I guess. Almost as if it doesn't understand the concept of trading and of reading everything together. It's really strange. And of course, we were already starting to do that by this point.
Or of even collecting. Like we're now into the collector boom. Mm-hmm. People are gonna buy the whole thing, read all together. This is post Watchmen. This is post Dark Knight Returns.
So that was a little strange. And yet, it is one complete story, so you do kind of want to have all of it together. It's
as you went on, did you start just skipping the pages that you'd already read?
No, because they're so integrated. It was kind of difficult to do that. And what's weird is you would have part of a page that was where a scene is reprinted and it is the same artwork, but then it would go into panels that are new.
Oh. So it's not even skippable.
No, it's so integrated. Yeah, it was really strange. Anyway, but eventually I'd like to get deeper into that and sink my teeth a little bit more into it. It's been a couple of weeks, and so I'm rusty on it. But it's I don't know, it's fascinating, and this trade is cool because in the back of it they reprint a couple of other old Krypton stories, which I've not read. But they're here if you want them, and then you can kind of compare and contrast.
Does it reprint anything from the other world of Krypton?
It doesn't.
Interesting.
And that I have a couple issues of, and I don't know what's in it. I don't recall. But anyway, and then the last issue of this has a scene that is almost word for word. It's not completely reprinted, but it's almost word for word from the Laura Jor-El scene that's in Man of Steel, and then they reprint the first. They reprint just those pages from Man of Steel in this, so that you get those and you see how close they are. And it's easier to tell that John Byrne is being really close-knit with his continuity. And it's great. And like, that stuff I really appreciated, because it's interlaced with panels that you didn't get in that are connecting it up more. It's almost like we're peeling the curtain back, and it's like, oh, this is what led to Jor-El feeling the need to send the spaceship off. And
interesting.
All of that, yeah.
That's really cool.
It is really cool. So yeah, I highly recommend this, especially if you're reading Krypton right now, or if you're watching Krypton right now. But I will say that there's some things about it being printed month to month that are a little bit irritating. But that's my main gripe with it.
Sure.
And the weird framing device thing. But anyway.
No time travel?
No time travel. Yeah, we'll get into that later. But yeah, so what are you talking about your last thing?
So last of all, I will talk about the first 3 volumes of Berzerk. which I'm sure I've said before, like, just Berzerk is, like, my favorite thing. Volumes, I think it's 4 to 14. I guess it starts in volume 4 to whenever that story ends. It's like 11 volumes long. That all as a piece is the best thing I've ever read. In my entire life, Berzerk, the Golden Age arc, is the best thing I've ever read.
So weird, and I've never heard anyone talk about this before.
It's one of those things that's, like, really beloved by the people that know it. So this is... I read all of Berzerk once, and then this is my third time going through at least the first 14 volumes of Berzerk. I bought all of these. Originally I read it from my library, which is insane because of how adult this is.
Yeah.
But originally, or I bought through 14 the whole first chunk of Berzerk a couple of years ago, and I reread all of it, and I read these volumes, and I was like, oh no. This isn't going to hold up, or it's not as good as I thought it was. And then when I got into the big flashback arc, I was like, oh no, it is. It is just as good as I thought it was. It's just a rocky start. So going back for reading this arc for this, I was expecting, it's not going to be good. It's better than I remembered it being from my second reading. So basically, the first 2 chapters of the first book are just standalone. They're just kind of like introductory stories. And then the rest of this is one long story, except for the last chapter of this, which is the beginning of the big, huge 11-volume story. I don't think this works completely continuously. So we catch up, or we start with Guts, and Guts is going around killing these things called apostles, which are big, like, weird demon things. And we don't know why he's doing any of this. And we eventually find out, kind of, and then after this, we're going to, for 11 volumes, we're going to give you the entire backstory of this character. It should have started there. Because if you didn't read these, and you started there and then read these, where they would fall chronologically, I don't think it lines up. I think who he is at the end of that story, he's not as prickly, he's not as much of a jerk, he's not... There's a thing about him not liking being touched, which is a character thing we resolve in the flashback story. He has it in the flashback story and he moves past it. It's just not fully formed, and I know from, like, looking at things about the author that, like, he didn't have this all planned out. He didn't even know he was going to do a huge flashback arc. And there's really important things that happen in the flashback arc. He didn't even know he was going to do that. I think now he does. He said he's about halfway done. He's 40 volumes in. This has been going since, I think, 88.
Oh, it's still going.
It's still going.
It's that wild cards thing. It's wow.
But it's all one guy.
And it's that Stan Sakai thing.
Yeah. This is a good introduction to the world, and I think it gives you a good enough sense of the flavor, especially when you get into volumes 2 and 3 and the arc really starts going, of the kind of ideas that we're going to be talking about and looking at, and humanity and desperation. And Berzerk is a very dark series and deals with really dark things, but it's not without its optimism. And I think one of the things that he gets immediately right and is really important up front is that Guts is a guy who kind of doesn't care about anyone and is very, like, the strong survive and the weak die, which I don't think fully lines up with where he'll actually be in the timeline when we get to this point. But he immediately gives a character that's a little annoying, but it's at least someone there to say, like, I'm not saying, like this is not what I'm saying. This is a character saying something, and he's being told he's a jerk, and he's told that he's being too mean to certain people and things like that. Berzerk is super violent. It's super violent and super sexual. I think, if nothing else, this first arc tells you up front that there are no limits for Berzerk. It will go anywhere. It will talk about anything. It's a really dark medieval fantasy. You're going to have slavery, violence, rape, like, you're going to get everything in this, and it's going to deal with it. Some of it really deals with, some of it is just, well, it's medieval, there's torture.
Yeah.
And things like that. And there's
part and parcel of that world.
Yeah, and there's some really violent torture. It's a real, like, not heroic fantasy thing in that, like, or not romanticized.
Yeah.
It is fantastical in that, like, this is not history, this is not set in England, it's just kind of a pseudo, medieval time period. But, like, everything sucks. And, like, some people are okay with their lives, but, like, everything kind of sucks. And there are certain things that he does that I think work really well, where, like, there's a point where there's just two guards talking, and they're like, these are guys that probably go around and murder people. The majority of this story is about a guy who murders heretics and pagans and things like that. Like, ruthless. It's like a witch hunt kind of a thing, where, like, if there's even a suspicion, and most of the people he's murdering at this point probably aren't heretics or pagans, there's a point where there's these two guards who probably have murdered people for these things because that's what they've been told to do, or like, nothing ever happens, like, you want to just go? Like, let's just go, like grab some food, we'll come back, no one will know. He's like, if we get caught, we'll get murdered here. And, like, it's a small little moment where they're really humanized, and like, it's like, well, what else are they going to do? Living in this world, in this part of the country where this is the guy in charge, like, what else are they gonna do? Like, they're just guys working jobs. And then Guts comes and just murders both of them ruthlessly. It's a real, like, it doesn't really take sides kind of thing. It's like, okay, look, these guys aren't all bad, but they're still gonna get murdered by the protagonist because he doesn't care.
I always appreciate when we give those people personalities.
Yeah, me too.
Because a lot of the time we like to pretend like they're like as ideologically committed as the person that hired them, and you're like, but why?
Yeah, they're not all zealots.
Yeah.
Berzerk is a lot about zealotry and about hypocrisy. So the main villain of this first arc is a guy who hates heretics and pagans and murders all of them. And we're told this backstory that by his daughter, who he keeps trapped in a castle. She's never seen the outside world, kind of a thing. And we're told this backstory that, like, his wife was murdered by like some kind of evil cult. And so, like, ever since then, he's just gone crazy. And, like, he just murders everyone. And then we find out that's not true. What actually happened was, he was out murdering heretics. Like, that's just a thing apparently this guy has always done, but just not as vehemently as he's doing it now. He came home. I'm going to say a word that I don't think has ever been said on Geekvolution, but I can't say it. And, well, and it actually might come up later.
Wait, did you say, I'm going to say it, but I'm not going to say it?
No. I'm going to say a word that I don't think has ever came up on Geekvolution, but I don't know. I have no other word that I can use in place of this. And it's going to come up later. We'll talk about it with society. So it's okay. He comes home and there's a massive orgy.
Yeah. I don't know that we've ever said that word on camera.
I don't think so. It's a word.
We do have to talk about that later.
But there's a massive orgy of all of these, like, Satanist kind, not Satanist because it's not our world. There's no Christianity or Satanism kind of thing, but demon worshippers kind of people. It's just masses. It's just flesh everywhere, and there's a big, like, goat statue kind of a thing. Doing this, which I see a lot in things with mysticism. This must be something. Like, I never thought about it, but I'm like, yeah, it's a symbol I see a lot in, like, mystic things, but, like, it's goat statue, and his wife's part of it. She's actually with the statue.
I want that to mean something really uncouth, so that somebody just, takes the picture out and posts on his Twitter. Yeah. You won't believe the sign Eric just threw up.
It's an anatomically correct statue, and his wife is with the statue of this, like, goat demon god thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it will go anywhere.
It will go anywhere. And so he goes, like, immediately crazy and just murders everyone in the room except for his wife. And, like, he has this moment where he's like, I can't. She's still my wife. Like, I can't kill her, and she knows that, and she's got, like, this knowing smirk on her face. Like, you're still not gonna kill me. And then the God Hand shows up, which is 5 demon guys. I think they work for God. It's not. There's a lot of mysteries in the universe still, but they're referred to as the God Hand. They show up and they're like, if you give up the thing that's most important to you in your life, we will give you power. And so all he has to do is say, murder my wife, and he'll be given power. And he becomes like this weird slug thing, and like his head's not his head, and it's very... Berzerk is really good at...
And it's the best thing Eric has ever read.
Not these 3.
Oh,
it gets there.
Okay.
Berzerk is really good at being Lovecraftian without looking like Lovecraft. Where, like, it's the sense of it where it's like, I don't know how to describe this. It's like a slug, dragon, man, wolf thing. Like, I don't know how to describe that. That's what Lovecraft is. I think a lot of people do, like, they just do Cthulhu. It's tentacles. He's not doing that, but it's that kind of sense of, like, this is beyond anything that we have on our planet. Like, it's a bunch of different things. And it's, and then the Godhead comes again. They're like, we'll make you even more powerful. You just have to let your daughter die. It also plays Really fun with the, like, I cannot die thing. Once you become an apostle, which are people that have been given powers by the God Hand and become monsters, you can't die. That doesn't mean you don't feel pain. And so, like, Guts just tortures these people, or these monsters. Like, you're just like, okay, you can't die, but I'm gonna make it so you want to die. Like, nothing's stopping me from doing that. Also, I think Berzerk is the first place for the giant sword. I cannot anything that predates it.
Oh, interesting.
If anyone knows of anything before Berzerk that does the giant sword...
How old is Berzerk?
I think 88.
What do you mean by the giant sword?
I mean, like, in anime and video game, and specifically Japanese video games, you always have the characters with, like, the insanely huge sword. Like, Final Fantasy has this, like, you know, where, like, a character has, like, a sword that's, like, huge.
Yeah.
Lots of anime has this. Inuyasha has it. Like, lots of anime has, like, the guy with, like, the really big sword.
Like, almost like it was made for a giant, but he's picking it up.
Yeah, yeah. Well, a lot of times the handles are like normal size, but like I'm trying to find a picture of the sword so you can see it. Like it's huge. It's bigger than he is.
Oh yeah, okay, okay. Sure.
It's a big anime trope. I don't know of it before this. And there's a lot. It's basically a slab of metal, and this is how it's described constantly.
As a slab of metal.
It's less like a sword and more like a slab of metal.
That's funny.
Yeah, I don't need it to be repeated as many times as it is, because that's how everyone describes it. Like, verbatim, the same words is like, it's more like a slab of metal than a sword.
Bismuth, we get it.
Yeah, yeah. The big thing, first of all, I can't say skip these, because the beginning of the next story arc is the last chapter in Book 3.
Oh, okay.
I also can't say skip these, because I think if you start at the beginning, if you start at the beginning of the next arc, you don't exactly have a sense of what's going to happen. This is kind of in medias res used well, where you're going to have a large span of time that's not fantastical. It's just medieval, and we will eventually get to the demons and all the stuff that you saw in the first, but you have no sense of that at the beginning of it. This kind of tells you up front, like, this is going to go nuts. It's going to get really big and really crazy, and we're dealing with huge cosmological things.
So you're not gonna be blindsided by that.
Yeah. Or like 9 volumes in, you're like, well, this came out of nowhere.
Well, and it needs to give the weirdness up front if it's gonna be that weird.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just look at the opening pages. Like, it immediately tells you, like, it's got that thing that you like, where it's no, actually scroll back. Like, literally the first couple of pages. It has the thing that you like, where it's like, it tells you up front.
Holy crap! Yeah.
This is how. Wow. This is how, like. If you can't handle this, get out now.
Yeah, get out now.
Also, that opening scene doesn't make sense with his characterization later either.
I like that in horror especially.
Yeah, and this is, I would describe Berzerk as like a political horror fantasy, especially in the next arc where it gets very political. But like, it is a lot about like chancellors and kings, and it's a lot about people in power and abusing that power, and these first 3 volumes are not great, but they are stepping stones, and it's very much he's kind of figuring it out. Also, the artwork in this is great. It will get better, and it just keeps getting better. Like, something's different about Japanese artists and American artists, where, like, a lot of American artists we don't like anymore. Like, their style's gotten something's missing. I don't know what it is. Neil Adams doesn't look like Neil Adams. Like, he does, but something's missing.
Yeah, they get past their prime, almost like athletes or something.
Japanese artists don't seem to have that. They seem to keep getting better. Maybe it's because they just keep working.
Yeah.
Whereas American artists seem to take breaks and become writers, and like their style kind of.
Well, yeah. Sometimes they'll leave and go do something else for a while, and they'll be writers or they'll be producers or something, and then they'll come back to comics and draw, and they haven't drawn in 10 years.
Well, and when you're working on like one thing for almost your entire career, you don't have time to like
constantly perfecting your craft.
Yeah, and you don't have time to experiment and be like, well, what if I drew a little bit more block here? What if I did this, and what if I colored it this way? You don't have time to do that when you're putting things out weekly.
Especially with the big 2 American artists that will ape someone for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly start trying to do their own thing, and then sometimes they'll have almost a second career, like Greg Capullo, where like now Greg Capullo has a Capullo style that you don't associate with McFarlane at all.
Yeah, it's true. So yeah, I would recommend these just because Berzerk is the greatest thing that's ever been made. If you have the right sensibilities, you have to like. It helps to like fantasy. You have to be okay with horror. and all that entails. It's also interesting this comes out in the 80s, because, like, this feels very 80s in I think, a good way, but, like, it's that something in the water kind of thing. Like, this obviously comes out around the time of, like, Reanimator and Evil Dead and all of those things.
Yeah, I immediately thought of heavy metal. Just
yeah, heavy metal. It is very adult. It's one of the most... like, I was reading this at 16, I should not have been. But you do... like, you kind of have to start at the beginning. I don't think you can skip. And I don't think these are bad. Revisiting it a second time, it's not the, like, colossal thing that I had when I went back, or, yeah, rereading this second time. When I reread it the first time, where I was like, oh, this isn't as good as I remember. I kind of went in with those expectations, like, it's a little bit better than what I'm giving it credit for. It's a little bit more indicative of what the series will be. I will not be reviewing the next arc on the next show, I don't think, because it's 11 volumes of manga. It'll probably take me... there might be 2 or 3 omnibuses before I get back to Berzerk.
Oh, yes, you will review it, but it won't be next time.
Yeah.
So
I am...
you can split it up, I guess, but...
I want to talk about this piece.
Okay, sure.
It's 11 volumes. I kind of consider it one graphic novel. It's the greatest graphic novel ever written, as in my opinion. But yeah, I will cover it. I am going back through Berzerk, and there's stuff of this I haven't read just because I like to read the arcs, and the arcs are like 5 to 10 volumes a piece, and so I buy it all at once, and I have to, like, volume, like, 22 or something. It's up to, like, 38. So, like, there's stuff that I haven't read, but I'm kind of going back through all this just because I want to. So when I finish the Golden Age arc, I will talk about it again.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, next time on the Comic Vault, Eric and I are going to tackle the entirety of Boom's Power Rangers up to this point, with the possible exception of Power Rangers Pink. I don't know if we'll get to that, but...
oh, I forgot that existed.
Yeah, but you wanted to read Go-Go up to now, and we had already said that we were going to, or decided together anyway, that we were going to read up till 25. So, yeah, so we're going to do everything, and... up
until Shattered Grid.
Shattered Grid, yeah, so that we can, we'll play catch-up, and then when that's over, we'll review Shattered Grid.
Yeah.
But,
because I've only read the first issue, and I think one issue you handed me, I think it was the first Raken issue, where you're like, you gotta read this, and I think I read that.
Yeah. And we may find, because I thought that might be a little bit too much. You might find that you'll want to split it up into 2. After we finish the Draken arc, but the arc we're in the middle of right now, we're very much in the middle of, and so I think it might be a good idea to go ahead and just read all the way up, so that we can, then get to Shattered Grid, because it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of finality before we get to Shattered Grid. We're still in the middle of a lot of stuff with, the former Red Ranger from the 70s and all of that. So, but that's what we're going to do next time. So, I look forward to that. And in the meantime, thanks a whole bunch for watching. We sure appreciate it. And this concludes this week's Comic Vault. Welcome back to How We Felt About. Today, Eric and I are going to tell you how we felt about a couple of different movies, or more accurately, we're going to tell you how we felt about one movie, and Eric's going to talk about another movie that I didn't go to because I thought it looked bad, and we'll see what Eric thought about it. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is Ready Player One, which just came out this last week, and luckily we're able to talk about it just after release this time. Yeah. Sometimes with the way these drop, we have to wait a couple weeks, and that sucks, especially with big genre stuff and superhero things.
Yeah.
This one we get to talk about just after it came out, so that's pretty exciting. Ready Player One, based on a book that I did not read, but you did.
I loathe.
And you didn't like it at all.
I believe it is Twilight for geeks. It's really poorly written, like real dumbed down, and so like everyone's kind of read it, and I think it's really pandery. My biggest...
Now, it's beloved in a lot of nerd communities. You're going to get a lot of flack for saying that, I'm sure.
My biggest issue is
the prose sounded really hard to get through to me, and that's why I didn't look at it. After you told me that it has like tense change issues, and that I think you said that, right?
Yeah, it's tense change issues.
And that it just you made it sound like it wasn't really a piece of literature so much as a thing that, this is just what it sounded like from what you said, so much as a thing that really kind of wished it was a movie or something.
Well, and it also, like...
But I don't know.
My biggest issue with that book is that...
it's just about the references, right? It's just...
My biggest issue with that book is about the references, because it's a book that pretends to be for geeks, but feels the need to hold your hand with everything. It's a thing that'll be like, frack, I said, referencing one of my favorite TV shows of all time, Battlestar Galactica. That's how the whole book is. It has to explain everything, because you might not get it, and I feel like that loses the entire point and fun of this idea. And also, I think the book is kind of self-hating and really cynical, and I think the movie feels... Because the movie, the writer is written, or the writer is of the book is one of the writers on the movie. It almost feels like a final draft. It almost feels like he didn't consider it finished and thought he could improve upon it.
It is cool that if you think it was improved upon, that his name is on it, because that means he had input in that, and that's cool if he helped to improve his own work.
I'm also a big fan of Fanboys, which he wrote.
Yeah, so you're not down on this guy.
No. I mean, I didn't read his next
movie too.
I didn't read his next book, but I watch Fanboys a lot. I really like Fanboys.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that's really neat about this movie is just how super old school Spielberg it is.
It feels like a Spielberg movie.
That was the sense I got from the trailers, and was hoping that that's the experience I was going to get. And it's a love letter to that era and his own catalog.
And it's cool because he's so important to that era that he gets to make this movie.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like, well, I'm going to make the thing that's going to make... Like, like, this is back now. I guess I'll make a thing... It seems like he really did want to make this movie, and he was having fun maybe going back to his earlier self.
Yeah, and I think it's really nostalgic in the right kind of way.
No, I agree.
Because it's not just nostalgic in, like, here's a bunch of references to all these things that you know from when you were a kid or whatever. And I mean, like, obviously, it has a lot of that, but I think all that stuff is really well integrated to a story where it ends up feeling like it just makes sense for all of that to be there. Well, so I was really impressed with that.
And I can't explain the Spielberg... I'm trying to... I can't think of a... Where I'm not like, it's like these Spielberg movies. There's just something about it that feels like the late 70s, 80s Spielberg.
I feel like I can throw a few things out. Structurally, it feels like those movies.
Yes. Yeah, I mean that's, I guess, the big thing, is and it's that non-ironic, just straightforward presentation of story.
Yeah.
Where, like, you have the woo moments, and they don't have to be undercut by anything. You have the funny moments, and you have, like, it feels like a movie at a time in a certain way.
And one of the ways in which the Spielberg movie is a thing I could actually use as a criticism, I guess, which is, I like these characters, but they never fully 100% come alive to me, most of them. Weirdly, the character who I most care to, I most come to care about, and who comes most alive, is the one who's dead the whole movie. The creator of the game. Great. Because, first of all, that actor is wonderful, and he's playing this really over-the-top, socially awkward guy who I come to really appreciate and kind of feel for with how he was just trying to find his place in the world, and he ends up creating a world for himself to escape from, and accidentally helps to turn people into what he wishes he didn't have to be. I love all of that. But because it's just his world and we're living in it, we come to know so much about him, and I feel like he is incredibly fleshed out. I love that. But, like, our main protagonist, I like him, but he's kind of generic in the way Spielberg heroes tend to be kind of generic. Like,
I loved the girl, but I think that's mostly performance. Like, I don't know if I love that character. I was just like, wow, she's great.
Well, I was really excited to find out she was in this, because she plays a really interesting character in Bates Motel, and she seemed perfect for this, and she's great, yeah.
I mean, T.J. Miller steals the movie with Iraq.
He's hysterical. He's hysterical.
We got a bunch of pops in for this movie at work the day after we saw this. And
is that the character's name?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
His name is Iraq.
That's hilarious.
And so we got all the pops in for Ready Player One, and I'd come in, and I was like, oh, I saw Ready Player One, and I really liked it, and you know, this and that, and they're like, well, we got the pops. Do you want any of them? I was like, I don't care about that much. And I saw Iraq, and I was like, oh, I might want the Iraq pop. He's awesome.
He's got that exact same kind of dry wit that he does, where he just doesn't freaking care about what anybody thinks of him, and he'll say anything.
And that's kind of who he is, at least as a comedian. I want to say as a person. Comedian, yeah. But like, everything I've ever seen him in, he's like that in crowd, Silicon Valley. His character's
well, the sense I get is that, one, obviously he's that in Deadpool, and the sense I get is that they must have let him improv quite a bit.
He had to have. Because and I don't remember that character from the book. He feels like he's almost
reading from a different script, in a good way. I mean, it's well integrated. But I'm impressed with actually how well that's that's connected to the very by the book script that they are clearly working from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. He.
I think the whole supporting cast works actually.
And I like the bad guy. I kind of love that the bad guy is a lot
of Bane's henchman from Dark Knight Rises, and that guy keeps playing parts like this, and it's hilarious. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, but it totally works with this material.
Oh yeah, and he's really good.
I kind of facetiously really like that the villain of this movie is a lot of people on the internet. They're going to tell you how great this movie is. Like, I kind of really like that. He is a corporate person who pretends to like all the geeky things because it's profitable and it's what people want to hear.
Yeah.
I really like that. But he feels like an 80s villain. We're like, he's just so big and over the top. And he's just so sinister.
And he is kind of two-dimensional.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how he got the way he is. There are a couple of places.
He's entirely profit-driven.
They make it really clear that he's supposed to be the symbol of losing your humanity because he's all about the material and he's entirely materialistic, and he wants people to get caught up in this game and not actually live in the real world. And the irony is he has no interest in the game, but he's he's completely lost his humanity in a different way than someone who maybe does that just because they never actually live in the real. Like he actually lives in the real world, but he's lost himself.
I like that with the creator and with him, you kind of have these two polar opposites of what I think is kind of the discussion of the movie, though never actually stated, which is art versus business.
Yeah,
and he is the complete. I don't care what any of this says, means, looks like, people like it, so let's just say that we like it too and we're going to sell it to them. And then the creator is entirely art-driven and does not care about anything else. And the ending is kind of somewhere in the middle. I really like that we have kind of two extremes of the art versus business kind of debate.
And I like that too because it's a big movie that isn't pretending like it's not there to make money.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's trying to tell a cool story, and it is about some stuff, and there's some good social commentary there, but it also knows that it's a vehicle for profit, of course.
But it's also the escapism and the entertainment and all that. Like I think
is in a lot of ways.
I think in never stopping and talking about it, it's so much about all of that.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's weird how thoughtful it allows itself to be about that stuff, but it could have gotten heavy-handed about it. It isn't. It could have gotten real heavy-handed about anti-corporate. I think it's just this exaggerated, horrible big business thing that we get a lot in movies like this, but it's not against business. It's against this kind of taking advantage of people.
Mm-hmm. Which is really important right now. Like I love where it's like we can put this many ads before someone gets a seizure.
Oh yeah, that was fantastic.
I really like all that. Where it's not anti making money off of the things that you make and love and things like that, but it is anti like.
No, and
like prostituting them.
It is talking about how you kind of have to find a balance with those things.
Yeah.
Sure. And I'll spoil a little bit these days on how we felt about it. We're a little bit looser on this. We suspect that most of the people listening to this would probably watch this movie. We won't tell you everything, but by the end, it's very much about that balance, where it's we easily could have oversimplified this to the point of making it a tear down of the system movie, and it is that to a degree, but like we're at the end we just go, yeah, let's just shut the game down, it's bad for people. Like the Oasis is a really cool thing that this brilliant and passionate guy built that there is a place for, but it can't be all you do, and it shouldn't take the place of living in the real world, and at the end, it's about finding that balance between actually living your life and having that escape, and you can do both.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's I
love what it has to say about loyalty programs.
Yes.
That got me.
As someone that hates the book, and someone who, when I saw the trailers, I rolled my eyes. And I went into this being like, yeah, I'm going to see this because I'm supposed to talk about this, but I'm not excited for this movie. Like, it looks like it could be okay if it gets far enough away from the book, and all of that. I walked out, I really like this movie.
That's really cool.
it kind of blew me away,
and I know there's a lot of folks that love the book that don't care for this that much because I think they were hoping it would be even more referencey. Just in like the references, a lot of them are very buried, and I really like that because it's more story driven and it doesn't feel the need to talk about all that stuff like you were talking about, where it isn't holding your hand with any of that stuff at all. And also, it's nice that like I think it's really smart in its strategy of getting everybody on board and then going to town with a bunch of references that you may or may not get, and you won't be confused if you don't get them. So right away, it throws a couple of major things at you that everybody in the audience will know, so they can go, oh cool, I get this, this is for me. Like there's a huge Star Trek reference at the beginning that everybody's going to get, and I think it is intentional.
We couldn't stop laughing.
We could not, yeah, it's hilarious. But I think it's intentional of how completely in your face and huge all of the symbols are in that shot, like with what it is. And it makes a lot of sense within the story and in the flashback we're getting there. But then after that, we keep more and more burying them where you really wish you could pause the frame so that you could see.
There were so many where like somebody walks past the screen. I'm like, was that? Oh, look, it's that person.
And it's really cool, but it's never important that you know what the stuff is. And the ones that are integrated into the plot, into the story that actually function as part of a plot point, are given to you, but not in an obnoxious, heavy-handed way.
No, like she drives the Akira motorcycle, and like it's not like the movie has to stop. And this is how I felt about a lot of the book. It's
but I'm thinking mostly like the Atari game thing in the third act.
Yeah,
like they need to come out and tell you what that game is and why we're playing it, and like why the key they're looking for is associated with that game. But I didn't feel like I was being pandered to. It's just that's. Like if you don't know it, you wouldn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
So that you did have to get.
Well, with the Akira bike, what I liked about it is it's treated like it's make and model. It's like what is like what is that bike, and they just kind of read off the specs, like and they say it's from Akira.
It's from this movie.
Yeah, the most influential anime movie of all time.
From Akira, yeah.
But like, I really like that. I really liked that there were very few things where we stopped and we're like, look, it's this thing. It just all existed in the world like it would.
And then when there were things that were, especially things that were kind of obscure, but are things that you know really well or you're a fan of, you get to feel more like, or at least I did, more like these moments are for me, and I get to go like, oh, I know there's people in here that don't know what that is. And that's kind of fun. Like it's all encompassing and for everybody at the same time as there are these fun kind of, I don't mean this in a bad way, but these fun kind of elitist moments where it's like, tee-hee, I get that.
But there's references.
Isn't that fun?
But I think what's smart about it is, it's for everyone in that everyone has something in this movie that they're gonna be like, oh, it's that thing.
Yeah.
Like people.
And it's not just video games, and it's not just sci-fi and massive genre stuff. I mean, like, I gotta get my mom to see this because she's a huge Stephen King fan, and like the Shining thing will kill her.
Yeah, no, the Shining thing's wonderful. There's a lot.
We lost our minds.
Yeah, it was really funny. I'll talk about the moment that gave me like head to toe goosebumps. I have described to people as like the most excited I have been in a film since I saw The Avengers, which is there's a live action Gundam. That fights a Mechagodzilla, and I've got issues with Mechagodzilla, but that's not important to that. Everything else is an actual design. Mechagodzilla is like their riff on Mechagodzilla. There are 3 Mechagodzilla designs. Pick one. I don't understand why they had to make their own. But a Gundam fights.
They did that with nothing else.
Yeah, a Gundam fights a Mecha, and it's very distinctly the original Gundam. It's the RX-78 Gundam. A Gundam fights a Mechagodzilla, and like that's cool. But like I'm not excited because Gundam's fighting Mechagodzilla. Like that crossover thing isn't what's getting me excited. It's, Gundam's never been live action. Well, that's not true, but that doesn't count. That was a Canadian-produced, awful, like, B movie. But I never thought, I never thought, and I continue to never think I will ever get anything like that. I will never get a Gundam movie that's just Gundam, like, it exists like that, live action. And it's the reason I saw the movie. Like there's a point...
That's interesting.
When I saw the trailer where just Gundam jumps up in the air, and I head to toe goosebumps, was like, oh, Gundam's in it. It was just such a... Because it's something I never thought I'd see. It's not just something I've seen before mixed with something else. It's something I never thought I'd get to see.
And you're going to be in the minority of people for whom that was the most exciting thing about the trailers.
I'm sure.
And, like, don't they do an incredibly good job of having plenty of images and iconography that are things that everybody's seen.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of stuff that the majority of the audience is going to have no idea what that is. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and we walked out of the movie and you said, like, I think there's more things in this for you than there is for me.
Yeah.
Like, there's just a lot of really fun, like, little things. And I'm sure I missed so much. I'm sure if I watch again, I'm like, oh, and there's that, and oh, and there's that. I think Lion Cat's in this movie from Saga. I'm pretty sure the big green cat thing is Lion Cat. Yeah. It's either that or...
it might have been He-Man.
I don't think so.
Isn't that lion green?
Yeah, but he wears armor.
Yeah.
I think it's either...
I don't know why you'd have that without the armor.
It's either Lion Cat or it's the thing from Watchmen.
Oh, Babastis?
Yeah, it might be Babastis. I don't think it had the antennae, so I think it's Lion Cat, and if it is, that's super cool.
That's nuts if that's there.
But yeah.
But it's just, you're always complaining about how we like to pretend like things are obscure and deep pulls when they're not. Like, or we do an obscure deep pull, but we make sure everyone gets it.
Yeah. We have to hold your hand with it. So you feel like you also get this thing. I like this movie's able to do both. It's able to have the obscure things because Batman's there. Like, I can have Buckaroo Banzai because Batman's standing right next to him, and nobody else feels lost.
And everybody's comfortable. Yeah. Like,
and I'm sure there's video game stuff, I don't know what they are. There was a lot of things I'm like, I don't know if that's something or if that's original.
No, of course. Yeah, well, and that's fun because there's so much original stuff that I'm not sure if it's a thing that I've never seen before.
Well, and I was worried at the beginning. I was like,
find some research.
I was worried. I was a little worried at the beginning. I'm like, so all of the main characters are going to be original things, and everything else is going to be referenced. I don't think that's true. I think it's integrated. And, and it's also possible that is the case, but I don't know what everything is.
Well, and we know that you can mod things to be licensed material, and that's fun. I wonder in that world, considering that it's a really heavily business-run kind of world where like business has their hands in everything. I wonder like who owns the licenses for certain things and how they get all that. Like maybe, and like we're not given this, and I'm just guessing at stuff. But we were talking earlier in the omnibus about how Disney didn't play ball with this movie, and it feels weird not to have anything from Disney at all because they own so much, and they own so much really massive geeky stuff. There's no Star Wars. There are mentions of Star Wars things, which is nice that they got those in there.
Yeah, they mention enough things from like Disney things where like you don't ever see it, but it feels like it's just off screen. Like they mentioned Millennium Falcon, and so like you're like, okay, Millennium Falcon does exist in this
world. So that's
world.
smart, but it's really weird to have that race and not have a light cycle from Tron and stuff like that.
It's also really sad that Star Wars isn't in it because you know if this had been before the Disney merger, it would have been.
Yeah,
because Lucas and Spielberg are tight.
Yeah, and so that's just kind of unfortunate. It's weird there's no Indiana Jones references.
That's
unless
true.
Unless I missed them.
But Disney owns that too.
Everywhere. Oh, they do
because they bought Lucasfilm.
I forgot about that. Well, yes, of course. Yeah, so they wouldn't have. So then I'm thinking, and again,
Disney is the villain of this movie. Is what we're saying.
Not the villain, but that they not only didn't play ball with the movie, they don't play ball with the Oasis, and so like they still exist and they own everything that's not in the Oasis, like everything, and everything else is in the Oasis. That's my guess. That's my fan canon notion.
Sure.
Eric.
Except that we know that the Millennium Falcon exists.
Well, it might exist. That people have heard of it. We don't know if it's in the game.
He says you can have the. If you join my team, you can have the Millennium Falcon.
I forgot about that.
No, that's what I like about it, is that.
Okay. Well, then my thing doesn't work.
I think it cretes the illusion that those things do exist in that world. We just can't show them because Disney is the villain of this movie.
But I wanted to say real quick that. Like sometimes I think it's important to reel things back and make it clear what we're talking about. That it isn't that we're elitist snobs and we need things to just speak to us and leave the rest of the audience out. I don't need or want a movie that I feel like is for me. That where I'm seeing like everybody else confused and wanting to get up and get out of the theater because gosh darn it, they shouldn't be there anyway. I
want that because Buckaroo Banzai I think is the perfect movie.
Yeah, but I'm just saying. Me personally, I don't have that. I'm impressed that this movie is able to give us that stuff without leaving people out.
No, I'm not.
And it proves that you can do that.
I'm not anti like the Easter egg thing. I don't like that we treat things that aren't deep pulls like they're deep pulls, and I don't like that if we do a deep pull, we have to make sure everyone's in on the thing. I like that this movie is able to...
you to play fair with your audience and give us a little bit of credit.
And I'm sure... And the thing that I love about this is I'm sure there are things other people noticed that I didn't. I'm sure there's things that they're and that's this from this, and that's this from this, and I just didn't get them. And I love that, because it feels like, in being exclusionary kind of, in a way, it's all inclusive.
Yeah.
Everyone will find something that they didn't think was going to be in this movie that they'll see like, oh, that's that thing.
But not in that horrible, we have all these disparate elements that don't come together, so there's something there for everyone, but there's actually nothing for anyone.
Yeah.
It's not that, because we're not talking about story stuff, we're just talking about
the world and all the
superficial, objects and characters and things that are part of this world. Like, the Oasis is the device it should be in order to tell a story.
Now, I don't think... Here's the thing, is I think you can take all the references out, and it's a fine movie.
Yeah.
I would not have liked the movie as much as I did.
No, I agree.
But you take everything out, it still works as a movie.
Yeah.
Once you get rid of all the references, it's still a fine movie.
Well, and what I like about, and I said this before we went in, hoping that this would be what the movie was, and I think it is, it gives it more credibility, because if this was the future and you had a game like this that like everyone was playing and they were trying to escape the real world in order to go to this place, they would, if they were able to get the licenses, they would put licensed stuff in it.
Yeah. Yeah, or you'd mod it yourself.
And so usually a thing like this looks really generic.
Yeah.
Because it has to, usually by necessity. The fact that we were able to get all those references, like, I feel like they took a thing, I don't mean to harp too much on the whole reference thing, but that is what...
It's the selling point of the movie.
It's the selling point of the movie,
yeah. And it's a big part of the film.
And I'm really...
In the experience itself.
I'm really impressed that it's as sophisticated about that stuff as it is. Because
Yeah.
it sounds like the book was kind of, maybe, I didn't read it, but it sounds like it might have been more of a, cookie cutter structure in order to have an excuse to have a bunch of references. Maybe the story is great, but it seems like the whole, reverential humor thing is the starting place. Okay, what kind of a world can we make up where we would be able to have all that stuff? It feels secondary in this.
Well, and it's also, I had a point building off that dealt with the book and the...
Sorry.
Well, and the big thing when they said that Spielberg was making this book was, I immediately was like, regardless of how I felt about the book, that's not going to happen. Even if I love this book, it's just going to be a generic sci-fi thing, and the entire point of that book is references. No way will you be able to get enough references that feels like it's worth.
And they nailed that.
Yeah, no. It seemed like everyone except for Disney showed up to play.
Yeah, because it's also cool because it's not just stuff that the studio has access to.
Mm-hmm. It's not just the Warner Brothers, archives.
They clearly were able to get others. Oh, right, like Lego Batman.
Yeah. No, they were able. And stuff that you wouldn't think immediately, like Japanese things, like Gundam and Akira.
Well, and like Greatest American Hero is referenced.
Yeah.
What?
Prominently referenced.
Yeah, that's really weird.
But there's a lot of really fun stuff like that, and I like that there are things that I don't think they either could get the exact licenses to and things like that, but a lot of it's represented. There's posters or various things where well, this wasn't in the movie, but here's a poster
Nintendo
for
powers and stuff.
Yeah, there's no Nintendo stuff.
Even though Nintendo's not doing stuff in this, or giving the Mario and stuff to actually be in the Oasis, I'm glad that they had. That they had magazines and stuff lying around, because you would.
Well, and for people that do love the book or just like the book or read the book, period. One of the things I think is really cool is with the challenges, at least with the second and third challenge, they're altered, but there is a reference to what it is in the book.
That's really interesting.
The first one, or the second challenge, is you play through, you have to speak line for line War Games, the movie War Games. They don't do that, but they go to a movie theater and on the marquee is War Games. And then the third one, it's Joust in the book. Joust is prominently displayed on the screen. The Atari game Joust is prominently displayed on the screen. I think that's really cool. As weird Easter eggs for people that loved the book.
What I loved about this, what I loved about the challenges was that it was more about getting into the head of the creator than it was about proving your geek worth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, to complete all of the challenges,
You had to fully understand this guy and how he felt about his life.
You had to share his philosophy to a certain degree.
Yeah, but you also had
You were worthy.
Yeah, but what I love is, and this is part of why I like this character, is that he is, he's Willy Wonka. And in all the way to the end, the giving back the everlasting gobstopper is in this movie, because you get to the end and you have to not sign the papers so that you don't make the same mistake he did with his business partner. So you not only have to be, the way you prove that you're worthy is to show him that you're going to not just learn from his successes but his failures. He wants you to be better than him. I love that.
Yeah, me too. Can I talk about my one complaint that you don't agree with or care about? But I've also, in this discussion, figured out a possible counter to my own complaint.
Oh, cool. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So
yeah, you have an issue with the first challenge. You think it's too easy.
I think it's too easy. I also, for me personally, thought it would have been way cooler if it was a challenge from the book, which is...
And I just didn't read that, so I don't have that.
There's a very famous D&D module called Tomb of Terror that's insanely difficult, and there's just a literal version you have to get through an already insanely difficult D&D module. I personally would have loved that. And I think the first challenge is too easy, and it is that kind of like referencey thing, like right up front, it's like, here's all these cards you know. And maybe you needed that. Maybe,
but again,
maybe
I think that's smart to get everybody in. Yeah.
And it's also the biggest, I mean, it's not the biggest set piece, but like, it's the biggest set piece for a while.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
As far as like action goes, because I wouldn't consider the Shining thing a set piece.
I would.
Okay. Well, I
how's it not a set piece?
I guess you're right.
We're in that location for like 15 minutes.
Yeah. I just mean it's not like a big action-y, like... I mean, I guess it kind of... I don't know. It feels different to me than the beginning and the big battle.
It's of a different genre because because by necessity we're going to a lot of different kinds of genres. But I mean, like we do that whole movie compressed in 10 or 15 minutes, and we do all the action scenes from that movie.
And the other thing is, I may have missed it. It may be there, but I also didn't see Tomb of Terror in the movie. So here's a possible counter-argument for me just saying, like, it should be that.
Well, and let's also say, real quick, one of your things when we talked about this earlier was that it's too easy because you have to... I guess we're just spoiling this movie. You have in order to complete that challenge, instead of doing the race forward, you have to drive backwards, and you seem to think that people should have figured that out already.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just something about it. Like, it might be different on the second viewing. On the first viewing, I was
there's
like, really?
There's
That's
a
all
wall
it is?
behind you, and he calls it a race. And that would tell you you're supposed to actually race. Like,
yeah,
I'm not sure it's as easy as you're making it out to be. I don't know who would actually think of that on their own without going to the archive and learning.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Watching it, I was like, that feels really easy. It doesn't feel like you earned that.
But here's the thing, if I may, and I'm not trying to insult you personally when I say this, but you turned to me and you complained about that before we knew everything, and I think maybe you just got that stuck in your craw because. As it continued, we got more about it, and like he, like I was reserving judgment, and once I knew everything about how we got to it, it kind of made sense to me. I don't know, like
yeah. And maybe I'm just like I really want a D&D thing.
Sure, yeah, like absolutely.
No, okay,
and I might have had that had I read the book too, so I don't know.
Probably not. I mean, you're not a D&D guy. Like that just for me would have been really.
No, but I might have pictured this really cool set piece that we didn't get to see.
On the other hand,
yeah. So
here's a potential counter argument. Not for the race thing, but for why it's not D&D.
Yeah.
There's no Hasbro. We don't get Transformers, G.I. Joe, My Little Pony, any of that.
Yeah.
So maybe Hasbro didn't play ball. Hasbro owns.
I get that.
We also don't get Magic the Gathering. I don't think.
Yeah, but what's weird about that's strange. You would have expected some of that, but we talk about Millennium Falcon. But you never see it. But you know what though? They like I said, they do like posters for Nintendo because
I think there's a D&D poster somewhere.
Well, I was gonna say there's a box. There's three or four D&D things I think. But maybe that doesn't tell us anything if they were able to put Nintendo posters up.
Yeah, yeah. I think.
Okay.
Thinking about it now, I'm like. Maybe they just couldn't. Maybe Hasbro didn't want anything to do with it.
Also, you do have to throw Paramount a bone because they never let anyone do anything with Star Trek.
Yeah,
and they only got the one thing, and I don't know. Maybe they did that without their permission. But all that iconography, I doubt it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. I'm sure there's. I bet you there are other little Star Trek things that we didn't notice.
Oh, I bet. Although they must have been really far in the background because I'm a pretty big Trek guy. I feel like I probably noticed it, but I think Spielberg's clout has a lot to do with all that.
I agree.
I mean, we're really lucky that he made this.
Yeah, a lesser director, and I don't mean quality, I mean of stature in Hollywood.
Yeah, sure.
I don't think they could have...
And it would have had to have been this late.
Like, if Kevin Smith got the rights to this, it would have been a much lamer movie as far as the licenses go.
Yeah, absolutely.
It could have been just a good movie. I'm not saying it wouldn't have been. I'm saying, the clout that he carries is not what Spielberg has.
But yeah, my final thoughts on this, I really appreciated the optimism of the film. I like that it feels like a pseudo-dystopian future, but, I mean, like, it's not all bad. It feels like a future we could pull ourselves out of, but it's bleaker than what we have right now, and I buy that so many people are trying to escape into this world, but I like that, I like that it's not too sappy about it, but I buy that by the end, you can have your cake and eat it too with all that. And I like that, we didn't talk about this, at the risk of talking, again, too much about references, I appreciate that you have all these people that talk as if they have nostalgia for these properties that they weren't even born for yet, because so much of the society is about getting into this guy's head because of the contest. And again, that's very Willy Wonka. Like, everybody's trying to get the golden ticket. It's great. I wonder if, like, does the book read that much like we're almost readapting Willy Wonka? Because that really is what this is.
Yes, except we're far more, like, cynical about the creator.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The big thing that this movie takes out that I hated in the book is how kind of, like, self-hating about geekness it feels. And, like, the ending is similar to the ending of the book, but I read the ending of the book and was like, BS. Like, that ending sucks. We get to a very similar place at the end of the movie, but I buy it more and it feels less cynical.
Because, like, and
it's less self-hating.
The bad guy with the company that's trying to control the Oasis, he's Slugworth. I mean, like, I can make so many parallels.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, like, I'm sure that is in the book a bit, but, like, it feels more critical of the Willy Wonka figure than the movie is.
Yeah, and it's not, like, horribly in your face about it. I think it would be easy for a lot of people to see it and never make that connection. But structurally, and even and even just with what the movie's about, thematically, it is Willy Wonka.
Also, I mean, I'll go with me on that. Final thoughts. I did not expect to like this movie. I really liked this movie.
And especially as much as you did.
Yeah, as much as I did. Also, I'm going to say the best use of the F-bomb in the PG-13 movie.
It's wonderful. That's so funny. Actually, and with the thing I was excited to see, and can I spoil my big one?
Sure.
I got spawned!
Yeah, you did get spawned!
That was great!
Actually, would you take Jason to see this?
Yeah. Well, I'm actually planning on it. Yeah.
Cool.
Because I know Sarah will like this. Oh, sorry. Earlier, we were talking about reasons that trying to articulate why this feels so Spielbergian. A lot of it also is he's got Alan Silvestri here, doing the score, and
there's a lot of real cool stuff with the score.
Did so much music from things in this period, including Roger Rabbit and including Back to the Future, and it's really nice that he's there doing the Back to the Future stings, because we've got the DeLorean, and anytime we talk anything remotely about time travel or space and time in this movie, we get Back to the Future stings, and I think it's so cool that Alan Silvestri's putting his own score.
Oh, Doctor Who isn't in this either.
From Back to the Future into this. Oh yeah, that's interesting too. Yeah, unless it's in there somewhere.
Yeah, it might be somewhere in the background. Who knows? This is the only thing that Christopher Eccleston came back for.
But that's all that's the rest of what I had to say.
I really like that this feels like an 80s movie in that, one, it's a legitimate, like, popcorn movie that's not a superhero film. It's a real tentpole, like, kind of big, epic. It's worth the price of admission, and it's not a superhero movie.
But it's not a movie you could have made back then. It's not like let's just make like completely make one of those. Like you complain about with Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Like it's not that. It has that feel a little bit, but it's very much about right now. Also, it feels real relevant.
Yeah. I really like that. It's a big kind of spectacle blockbuster film by the guy that in some ways kind of created that. in that it's a movie that feels like
would have been a nice send-off for him. Like if he never makes anything else.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That would be the right.
He's still got 2 more Tintin movies to make. He doesn't get to go anywhere. But it's also got kind of an edginess that 80s movies had that
but folks
modern movies don't have.
Sorry, folks that especially love that book and like the tone of it and don't care for this. If they don't have I completely understand that if they don't have the nostalgia for Spielberg that I have.
But that would be weird to love that book and not have the nostalgia, not have the nostalgia for Spielberg, because it's so much about that era, and Spielberg permeates everything, even things he doesn't make. Like Spielberg's fingerprints are all over Poltergeist and things like you know what I mean?
Sure, but I get the sense, not that I talked to a lot of people, but just anecdotally, I get the sense that people wanted it to be more video game referencey.
Oh, interesting.
It's kind of the sense I get from some folks,
interesting.
but I don't know. Because to see what our comment section looks like
overly video game
references.
Is it not? No. I mean, like there's video game references, but I mean, if anything, it's too video game referencey because it doesn't reference any modern video games in that book. I don't think.
Oh, really?
Maybe there's a Halo or something,
because there's so much of that in the movie. But,
yeah.
Just with the title and the premise, I assumed it was 90% video game stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it is a video game.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I figured a lot more of the references would be that. That's why I was so surprised to see things like The Shining.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I really like this movie. I'm feeling it. It's a good time in movies. You should go. It's maybe the only time in the next 10 years that you're going to get to go see a movie like this that's not a superhero movie. We keep trying, but they always suck, right?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Yeah, I felt like with some of the social commentary, it was pretty poignant, but I loved it for just the escapism and the fun I was having too. Like I appreciated that stuff, but it was kind of icing on the cake. Like it made it more thoughtful and made it feel a little bit more character driven, even if I thought the heroes were like inching toward 3-dimensional, but weren't quite getting there.
And you wouldn't,
or at least the main character. Honestly, I think the girl actually kind of transcends that. I think she's more interesting than he is.
No, I agree, and I just not that the guy was bad. She's great. She's great in the human scenes and in the Oasis. Like she's just so good. Actually, it's possible her character's not much more than him. She just elevates it more for me.
Yeah, that's possible too. But there was some nice pathos with like the reason that she was she's going into the Oasis because she has this heroic mentality, and she's trying to save everything, and she's trying to save everyone, and she's all business, but at the same time, she does enjoy this stuff, and so she's able to have fun. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, because she's one that's the big line about
she's kind of like Wild Style in the Lego Movie.
Well, but she has the big line about like you don't care about the real world. But that doesn't mean she doesn't like this stuff. She does like this stuff. She also just has a larger perspective.
She could have been no fun.
Yeah.
You're right, she has a large perspective, but then also she feels weird going out in public, and she has the birthmark thing, and we also could have made that her whole character, and it's not, and I appreciate that.
Oh, and we didn't mention...
I think part of my issue with it, because we haven't talked enough with the protagonist, that's how not fully realized I kind of feel like he is. Like
4 years ago, he was Miles Teller, right?
Probably so, yeah. Like, I'm not saying... That's a good point. I'm not saying I don't like him, like I said earlier, and I think he is... I don't know that he's any more or less drawn than Charlie from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, if we're going to, continue to make that comparison.
Or the kid from E.T.
Yeah.
Or the people in Poltergeist, or...
But my thing with him is he's almost too... cool and not socially awkward to be paralleled with the game creator at all. Because there's the whole thing at the end about him not making the same mistake as the creator did with never going after the girl he was interested in, and he's really proactive about pursuing her. That's never an issue. That's never a question.
But
okay,
he's doing it digitally.
That's true, right? But no. But when they finally meet, I still don't get the sense that he's like
that's true.
Like too unconfident or has too many insecurities not to go in for the kiss. Like, nah, I never really bought that. He's not. I'm not saying that he should have been exactly the same personality type, but it might have been smarter, at least in making that idea work, if he was way more confident in the virtual world than he is in the real world. I mean, he's that way, like with his his folks, and sorry, with his folks, with his aunt. that whole my mom's sister thing, I think is really funny. But like,
it takes a moment to sink in. You're like, oh, ha, that's funny.
But I don't know. He's not the typical nerd.
No.
But then at the same time, that can't
exist
in that world. So yeah. That's probably just a second viewing thing. Where maybe that works better on a second viewing, maybe it doesn't.
And we didn't mention them at all.
Lengthy first impressions, but these are first impressions.
His best friend is great.
Yeah.
I would have cut the Asian brothers. They have a little bit more to do in the book, and like they have a whole backstory, and like it's much darker.
They didn't just need a bigger team, but they don't do much with them.
Yeah. It's like, well, we're not just gonna cut two whole characters from the book, but like they didn't get anything to do.
Yeah.
I mean, the little kid was great. Like there was some fun stuff with that little kid, but like I feel like you could have cut them and not lost much. I never felt like they were part of the group.
Yeah, I didn't either.
But his best friend is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was our thoughts on Ready Player One.
Surprisingly solid.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So Eric, you saw the sequel to Pacific Rim, which
Rim
I avoided
Uprising.
like the plague because I thought it looked terrible, and the studio wasn't confident in it, and they didn't advertise it right, and I wasn't gonna go until I heard good things about it, and I will wait till video at this point. But what'd you think of it?
I liked it.
Yeah.
So I'm overhead, like just general, like real general thoughts. I like it. It has all of the flaws of the first film. I loved the first film. Like warts and all, like that movie's got problems. But like I love the first film. This movie has all of the same problems. One of the things I was kind of befuddled by was how many people said this is an inferior sequel because look how unfleshed out the characters are, and I was like, that's the biggest problem with the first movie, is none of those characters are fleshed out at all. Like, none of them feel like people.
That's how I felt about it, too, but I remember after that came out, a lot of people being like, I'm really surprised by how alive these characters came for me.
Okay.
I didn't have that.
I don't know I know people that like that movie, I know people that hate that movie. I don't know anyone that disagrees that the characters in the first film, even Guillermo del Toro in the commentary has a story about how he told the guy that plays Raleigh, he's like, there are hundreds of, or there are millions of wonderfully deep and complex and sophisticated characters that have all this nuance to them. Raleigh is not one of those. Like, they're not meant to be.
Yeah.
This has all the same problems. I don't think any of the characters are nearly as fleshed out as they should be, and the cast is too big, and I don't get to know. I don't get like there's a bunch of background characters, just like in the first movie. Like there's the three Asian guys that do the red mech, then there's the Russian guys that do the big lumbering one. It's got the same problem. Like it has all of the flaws of the first film, and then a couple of its own. So I will say I liked the movie. I don't know how much I'm gonna like it. Like I watch Pacific Rim every couple of months. It's a movie I throw on a lot. In the long term, I won't know how I'll ultimately feel about this if I will throw it on as often as I throw on the first film. It has a couple of problems. Mostly, it takes me a little while to get into the movie. The first, like, 20 minutes or so, I'm not really sure how I feel about the main character. And it has a premise problem. So I saw people complain about the first one, where they were like, why don't they just make big guns? Why do they make giant robots? I'm like, then why see the movie?
Yeah.
Like, you can't have this movie without giant robots.
Kind of
you have to make the leap of logic.
Yeah.
Where I cannot go is that they have continued to make Jaegers, and that, like, there hasn't been a kaiju attack since the first film. We're 10 years later. There has not been a kaiju attack. Not even making Jaegers. There's a Jaeger Academy where you go to train to be a pilot, and a big conflict in this film is there's a corporation that's pushing for, they've developed drone Jaegers, and there doesn't need to be pilots. Why are we making all this if there are no giant monsters attacking, and it doesn't seem like anyone thinks they're coming back? I don't understand.
Yeah, that doesn't strike me as a conceit that works.
I can't give it to the movie.
No.
I cannot go there.
It just doesn't work with the internal logic of that first movie. They were talking about shutting down that program when there were giant monsters.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
The other problem...
It's an expense issue, right? Like, they cost a lot.
Yeah. The other problem is I don't think the ending of the movie exactly works. We have this wonderful big action set piece at kind of the beginning of the third act, and then so we develop rockets that can propel the Jaegers, because we find out that if you mix something with with kaiju blood, it's like the most powerful fuel ever. And so they develop rockets that can carry the Jaegers around. The climax of this movie is a giant kaiju is going towards Mount Fuji, and they seal their Jaeger's hand to the rocket, fly up, jump out of the Jaeger, and the Jaeger crashes into the monster. And then basically credits. Like, it doesn't feel like a it feels like a pilot.
That's anticlimactic, yeah.
It's really anticlimactic. Those are my big issues with the movie, is it needed a bigger, better ending. But otherwise, I liked it. John Boyega's great.
I was going to ask, yeah.
It's interesting because he's kind of got a Finn thing going on in the beginning. But I completely buy that he is...
Do you mean just in the kind of like pseudo-bumbling thing?
Yeah, and it's very much the Finn humor in the beginning of the movie. And then, like, once he gets to the academy, like, he kind of, like, straightens up a little bit, and, like, he's still a little bit... His character archetype is kind of like the guy that doesn't care about anything. But I completely buy that he's Idris Elba's son, especially when he gets to the speeches. Like he gives a speech. He's like, "I'm not my father, but like I'm gonna give a speech. I'm gonna give it my best." And like he gives a great speech. I buy 100% that he's that guy's son.
That's really cool.
The problem is I don't know why he's Stacker Pentecost's son. There's no reason for the protagonist of this film to
why
be
he has
his
a normal person first name. How did
Jake. Stacker Pentecost's son's name is Jake.
How did we do that? Like, we clearly don't name people like that in this universe. I don't understand.
It's also weird because
doesn't everybody have names like that?
Raleigh.
No, you and I talk about that. That's a real name.
Yeah, no, I know, but it's a heightened name. It's not a common name.
Right, sure.
But I can't remember the girl's name now. But the.
Because you remember when we watched that first movie, you were like, what is it? Is he named after the city? And then I looked it up and showed you that it's a real name, and here's what it means. Yeah, I don't remember anymore, but...
I feel terrible because now I can't remember that character's name, but the female lead of Berzerk Rim, I think her name is Miko. Anyways, I was going somewhere with all of that. Oh! Her character arc makes less sense. Or not her character arc, but Stacker Pentecost's arc makes less sense. Knowing that he is a son that was in the Jaeger Academy and got thrown out by him, how does that not come up when you're telling her that she can't pilot a Jaeger?
Yeah.
Like, it's really weird that conversation doesn't happen in the first movie. Scott Eastwood is in this.
It's always strange to retcon, having kids.
Well, and there's also this thing where...
Or to retroactively add, oh yeah, and by the way, this person had children.
And a brother. Like because it's also that girl's brother. And so...
Oh yeah!
So, we pretend like they have a relationship, and I don't really ever believe that. They refer to each other as brother and sister a couple of times, and I don't really buy that. They just don't... They don't have a chemistry that they've known each other for all this time. And then... one of the big... I'm just going to spoil this movie. I'm sorry. Most people didn't see it. So, like, I don't feel bad. She dies. And she dies really unceremoniously, and I think it's supposed to be a huge emotional weight to Jake. I don't feel it because I don't believe that they're connected like that. Yeah. They don't have enough scenes together to get to that point. And I was really confused because there's a Chinese woman in this, and then when I think her name's Miko, I keep wanting to say Mygo, but that's the giant kaiju book that I reviewed a couple of shows back. When she dies, I was like, oh, can we not have two Asian women in our movie about giant robots? Is that what that is? And I was like... but then I realized, oh yes, China saved the first movie. China hates Japan, so it makes sense that you would kind of replace her with a Chinese actress. It's a different character, but like, I think that was a strategic move.
You think so? That's
yeah,
interesting.
And I didn't know about China hating Japan until I watched Ip Man. And I realized that stemming from World War II, China hates Japan. I didn't know that. I think that was a strategic move, and that's unfortunate because it feels like it's out of nowhere. I think it is out of nowhere. I think they decided to do that because this movie's for China. It's not for us. It's for China. We're hoping it does really well in China so we can make more movies. Because it saved the only reason we have the second movie is because
it's so easy to oversimplify everything with us ignorant Americans and just look at ethnicity and not nationality.
There were two things I went into this movie where I was like, it doesn't look like these things are in the trailer. There are two things I knew Guillermo del Toro said, these are the things that will be in my sequel. And then he left the project.
Right.
And I was like, it doesn't look like either of these two things are in the movie. That's really upsetting. Because those are both great ideas. One was Jaeger Kaiju hybrids. And the other was Charlie Day was going to be the villain because he drifted with a kaiju. We get Jaeger Kaiju hybrids, but not in the way I thought. And it's really cool. So in the trailer, you can see that there's two Jaegers fighting. They fight that Jaeger. It's a big mystery, who's piloting this?
Oh, cool.
And we think it's the drone people. We think it's a drone kaiju,
okay,
or a drone Jaeger.
But there's somebody in it.
And then its head pops open where the people would be, and it's just a big kaiju brain, just integrated
cool
with the circuitry. And then there's these drone kaijus that show up, there's these drone Jaegers that show up, and then they explode, and they're part kaiju, and it's like a sneak attack. And it's really cool. I really like that stuff. And then Charlie Day is secretly the villain the whole time, which is great. He's wonderful. Gets nothing to do in the third act.
Oh.
He gets to stand there and be menacing and be like, yes, go, my monsters! But because the conclusion is so small, it's literally just Scott Eastwood walks up and punches him. and then we get the ending of Independence Day Resurgence, where they're just like, this time we're going after you. I loved that Charlie Day got to be the villain, but I was really disappointed that he didn't. He needed more, and this movie's a half hour shorter than the first one, and the first one's a tight film. I think it's just a little over 2 hours. This movie's a half hour shorter than the first one, and when we got to the point where the movie ended, I was like, okay, cool. There's still going to be a bit more movie. That's not the final climax. There's another one.
They're on to a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Charlie Day gets punched out, and I was like, oh, this is the end of the movie.
Well, there's a story there.
Yeah.
They
want it to be a trilogy.
Oh, okay.
And they want it to be a trilogy, and apparently the end of the trilogy will open it up to be a Star Wars-esque universe where we can have spin-offs and main films.
That'll never happen.
And what sucks is I think they could, not marketably.
They could if people care.
Yeah, we clearly don't care, but I think the universe is interesting enough.
Sure, yeah.
And if it was a comic book line, I think they could have gotten away with it. Absolutely. It could have been like Hellboy. You could have been a Hellboy slowly build out the universe kind of a thing. Also,
that is a thing that should continue in comics, like IDW or Boom or somebody.
Yeah. Also,
I know somebody's got that license.
A plot problem is that we introduced Charlie Day working for the drone people. He's like this big brain scientist working for the drone company. He's a biologist. Why is he working for a technology company? It doesn't make sense.
A lot, just generically, scientists can do everything.
Well, and the reason he's working there is so that he can put the kaiju in the What's weird is the big reveal is that he's still doing what he's always been doing. He is still a biologist.
Oh, okay. But then why would they put him there?
But why would they have him there in the first place?
Yeah.
And if you didn't know going in, well, I mean, I didn't know going in Charlie Day was going to be the villain. But it's really fun because he seems completely out of character. I was really kind of against him when he first showed up. I'm like, he's not the same person. This is weird.
But that's because.
And then they do the reveal, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. So I enjoyed this movie. I'm not going to say it's great, but I also wouldn't say the first film's great. I love the first movie. I wouldn't describe it as a great movie.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
But I think this one's in the ballpark of the first one. I think it has all the same problems with a couple more. I will watch this movie again. I will probably watch it a number of times. I enjoyed it.
That's good.
I want a third one.
I mean, I didn't see it, but I just, at least based on what you're saying, I'm glad if I was wrong.
The biggest problem of the whole movie is that DeKnight is not an experienced film director.
Yeah.
It's fine. It just doesn't have. I don't know. There's a reverence that
it's sad that he left
has.
Daredevil to make that.
Yeah.
Because as much as you're saying you enjoyed it,
it's not Daredevil.
Anybody could have directed it.
Yeah. And it's more quick cutty. I don't know. It's not the same. I will say the first movie, I think Guillermo del Toro is in love with the monsters. Like, he likes the Jaegers, and like, he spends time with them. He loves the monsters.
That's his priority.
This movie is much more interested in the mechs. I don't know if that's a script focus or if that's DeKnight personally. Like, he is more interested in the giant robots. This movie's more interested in the giant robots than it is with the kaiju. And it's cool how long we go before we do bring kaiju in. Like we live in a world without kaiju. We don't it doesn't start with and then there's a kaiju attack all of a sudden.
Yeah, that was the status quo 5 minutes later.
Yeah. So I liked it. A lot of people are hating it. I think if you like the first movie, you'll probably like this. Although I'm finding that's not the case.
People are liking it. Yeah.
I think it's fun. I will go with feeling it. It's a light feeling it. It's a lighter feeling it than Ready Player One, but I like it.
Cool. Well, folks, thanks a lot for watching. This concludes today's How We Felt About. Thanks a bunch, and we will see you in a couple weeks. What is the next thing we got to go to the theater and see? I guess I don't even know.
Rampage?
Yeah? Yeah, I guess
I think Rampage is the next thing.
And there might be something else.
Well, I think it's Rampage, then we have a week off, and then Infinity War.
And when is Deadpool?
Right after, I think.
Yeah, because that's coming up too, isn't it?
Yeah, that's also coming up.
Cool. So look forward to all of that.
Deadpool sequel.
Yeah.
Which is in none of the marketing.
It's not. It is saying Deadpool 2 in a lot of places. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I really thought that they were going to run with that more. I still think it might actually be in the movie. I'm holding hope out.
It seems like maybe a thing they thought of, and the marketing company said no.
No, I think it's backwards. I think it's the thing the marketing's doing.
Oh, you think so?
That Fox is not allowing it to be in the title. Well, yeah, because the one place I've seen it is on the website.
Right.
That's marketing.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, but it's not in any of the trailers. Like, it doesn't seem like the Fox's marketing department has run with that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah,
it's weird. But yeah. Anyway, so
we will never escape big releases.
So that's it with How We Felt About 2. Feeling it.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Well, 3. Because we both felt Ready Player One, and then I felt
3
feeling it.
But and we so rarely flip our signs differently. I wish that happened more often.
That's true. Well, and you know, people say we're always like super positive about something, super negative. Rim Uprising, kind of middle of the road. Also started the audiobook. I said last time I was going to listen to the audiobook. I got about 2 hours in. It's really boring. And
then the prequel thing.
Yeah, then Pacific Rim Uprising Ascension. And then
I can't handle that.
And I saw the movie, and it's the background characters. It's not even the formula characters that get like a lot of screen time. Like, and there's no kaiju. There's no kaiju for 10 years. So it's just like kids at the Jaeger Academy. Not recommend for the 2 hours of the book I listened to. Well,
anyway, thanks again for watching, folks, and that concludes today's How We Felt About It.